It is time to start our regular 5:30 meeting, and I'm calling it to order April 9th, 2025. It's our city regular council meeting. We are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Ernesto Gutierrez will lead us in that, but will you please stay standing while Mayor Pro Tem Raymond Gregory does the invocation?
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As the days grow longer and the sun shines brighter, we give thanks for the warmth and beauty of this season, for the promise of new beginnings, and for the opportunity to embrace the joy of life. It is with this joy that we come together today to work to make our community better. Let us find the wisdom to discern what is good and truthful, the compassion to consider all issues, reflecting on how they affect all parties, and the strength to act in the best interest of all. Thank you.
City Clerk, may we please have roll call?
Councilmember Carnevale?
Here.
Councilmember Lamb? Councilmember Gutierrez?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Gregory?
Here.
Mayor Ross?
Yes. And City Manager, are there any changes to our agenda finalization?
Yes, Mayor, we're recommending that item 5C be moved ahead of A and B on your agenda.
Thank you, that seems reasonable. And with our public comment, City Clerk, will you please read the statement of participation?
Public comment is the opportunity for members of the public to comment on items that are within the City Council's jurisdiction but not on the agenda. Because of restrictions contained in California law, the City Council may not discuss or act on any item not on the agenda, but may briefly respond to statements made or ask a question for clarification. The Mayor may also request a brief response from staff to questions raised during public comment or request that a matter be agendized for a future meeting. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes. If you are a member of the public and you wish to address the City Council, please complete a request to speak form available at the entrance and submit it to the City Clerk. You will be called upon at the appropriate time. If you have materials or other items to present to the members of the City Council, please do not approach them. All materials shall be presented to the City Clerk for distribution.
Thank you.
And Mayor Ross, we do have a couple requests to speak forms, but first I would like to mention that we did have 2 comments that were received for the record. They were summarized during the study session portion of the meeting. That is David Coslow's comment and Taryn Burns' comment, and those will be made part of this record as well.
Thank you, yes, and you did tell us about this.
Okay. The first speaker is Greg Astley.
Good afternoon, how are you?
I'm great.
Good to have you.
Thank you, Mayor. And councilors, thanks for your attention for a few minutes. 3, I guess. So there's a little gem in Cathedral City that a lot of people like to come to. It's a wonderful place, and you might know it as the Crystal Palace. Close enough to it, it's called Orbs Outdoor Resort, Palm Springs. And of course, the snowbirds are fleeing to go back to homes and leave the summer coming. But lo and behold, there's still a few of us standing. And I just want to bring up a couple of things. And in surmise of the last 6 months, there's been a lot of attention here regarding the cannabis odor. And I know you have the moratorium. And you're dealing with that. You're looking at all the things that you need to, and hopefully taking the time, as I asked you to do before, and not rush into conclusions. But surmising that the last 6 months, it's been painful for Orbs, but I imagine it's also been an annoyance and inconvenience, and it's part of your duty, civic duty, election duty, but it's not pleasant to listen to the same stuff over and over and over. So I just look and think, okay, well, it's not coming to an end. I just want to let you know that. It's not coming to an end right now because there's still odor even today as we just left on our way here. So it's not over until it's over, and that means that the smell is gone. The smell's not gone, so that's why we're here, or why I'm here. And I'm looking already at the summer and what's going to happen next fall. And If you think this winter was bad because of the odor, if the odor is still persistent in October when we come back, others maybe September, I don't know, but as the season comes, it's going to be fire. It's just going to be, you're going to be inundated and grieved all, like, hopefully you can do something with your moratorium and consider, like, you don't want to go through another season of everybody complaining. I really feel for you. I feel for the people, myself and Orbs. We just don't want to smell that. And hopefully through your moratorium, you'll come to some terms. The park has been there for 40, 45 years, since 1984. That pot plant has only been here, just started up last spring. And if they're evicted, you can do what you need to do. If you cancel their permits, revoke them, whatever you need to do. But surely something's going to happen after that where you can still generate money. That plant will still be there, the building will still be there and can be repurposed or what have you. As far as the pot odor, boy, that's going to be a tough one for them to solve their riddle, their problem, that odor. So hopefully you're considering all those things. You know that there's lawsuits going up in Santa Barbara, Carpentiera. You've heard the news there from the Walter Group, Dan Walter, maybe on NBC. It's just like, nobody needs that. Save yourself the grief. Save the citizens, you know, like the patrols that come through the park. It's costing you guys money to do that. And you can do all the analysis that you want. The odor's there. But next year, I would propose that if it's still there, you're going to get thousands. We're going to get petitions with thousands of people. We'll go door to door. We'll do what we need to get the surrounding community, which you've heard from many times, but more so on a more massive scale. So it's not going to go away.
Thank you,
My
sir.
3 minutes is up. Thank you very much. Have a great summer, by the way.
You do too.
The next speaker is Janet Ream.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. To kind of go on to what Greg was saying, we've been here for 6 months. You guys finally gave us the moratorium to keep the other building from being built and other facilities throughout the city. I understand that. But we were at one meeting where Mr. Firestein met with us outside, and he basically told us, we have no intentions of shutting C4 down. When then we get more language and more things working with the city, we have hope. That hope is diminishing because absolutely nothing happens. There's no fines. The last 2 weeks has been horrendous for the smell. I live fairly close to the back wall, so I get it probably worse than a lot. But something has got to be done. They're just thumbing their noses at us, you, and everybody else, because absolutely no consequences for their actions. They've made no commitment. There's been no mitigation to that smell whatsoever. It might go away for a few days or an hour or two, but then it comes back with a vengeance. The other night we were sitting outside trying to enjoy our patio because the weather wind quit blowing. And all of a sudden we get this huge waft of it. We go inside and we can't even get away from it then because it permeates inside. I am begging the city to do something to make it a consequence for these guys to take us seriously, that this has got to be mitigated, it's got to be stopped. They need to be shut down if they're not willing to work to try to take care of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. City Manager, we did discuss several weeks ago that we would have regular-ish conversations. When might you be presenting the next update?
We're going to receive an update on the 23rd, the next meeting.
On the 23rd?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much. And you guys know what that is, right? The city manager is going to give an update on where we are with the cannabis issues. So thank you very much. Next person.
The next speaker is Michael Hayes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Hayes.
Who said that? Hi, hello, Mayor. Hello, everybody. I had prepared a long, lengthy statement, primarily discussing the situation that was happening with us here in the Cove, but that Chief Crum's going to address on the 24th, and I thank him for that. Thank you, sir. It would help holding a promise meeting for the community about the hateful violence, extreme rhetoric that's going on. It happened again. I'm not going to bother Rita about it because that was fruitless. It happened again a week ago, Tuesday, when the gentleman, I hate to even term that, the husband started calling me Indian boy. Does he know American Indian? I have no idea, but he went through everybody, black, white, Hispanic, all these racist things. And the police department actually helped us out just the other day. Sergeant Olson helped the property next door we were trying to sell for our neighbor who's 93 years old. They cut down the hedge. They're calling me a faggot. He's calling me a faggot. And we're trying to sell, and people are coming in and looking at it, gay couples looking at this property. And this is going on, and it's been going on for 3 years. But we're gonna deal with it. I don't want to burn any bridges. But I would like to talk to you about, if I may, probably before, some of you have been here. This one here has been there for a while. I don't recognize the other names, they weren't there. With the disgraced Vasquez, Councilman Vasquez, Mayor DeRosa, my neighbor that I take care of, I'm helping with the house, 93-year-old Shirley McClappy, the neighbors across the street, David Stugas, and I just want to tell you that, and then there was this other character, Stan Henry. They had led a lynching style mob across from my house back in like 2007, 2008. Went up to this guy's house up at the hill and scared the shit out of him. And they called him a drug dealer. It's the guy in the back of the house that was a drug dealer, not this guy. This guy's a homeless guy that is taking refuge at the library. And it's just really a shame. And then I don't know how that Shelley Kaplan winds up with his house. I don't know how that happened. It just seems very weird to me. The other thing with the Cove improvement, I get every 6 months I'm getting a bill for $1,720. And when it's paid off, I will have paid for the city streets that I don't own $114,000, and which is a total letdown. So when you guys go through it, I know David Costello talked to you earlier today. Yes, you need to hold all these festivals you're having, all this stuff you need to have, and do the bookkeeping. Keep it within the scope of your business plan. Anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Costello.
Fastest 3 minutes I've ever experienced. There's so much to say, but thank you all.
Thank you for your time.
Okay.
The next speaker is Eileen Lynch.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you. Well, thank you, council members, for having me. My name is Eileen Lynch. I am the executive director of Parkinson's Resource Organization, and I'm here today actually to let everyone know that it's Parkinson's Awareness Month. So I wanted to share some information about the condition itself and the resources that are available right here for you. Parkinson's is the fastest growing neurodegenerative condition in the world, and it's also the second most common. It affects aging populations. We estimate that there are 8,000 to 10,000 people with Parkinson's here in Coachella Valley, including about 1,050 here in Cathedral City. And it affects more than just the people with the condition. It affects the family members, caregivers, and community around them that are helping to take care of them. I do consider this to be somewhat of a hidden epidemic. People with Parkinson's tend to retreat into themselves and their homes, so we might not even realize how prevalent it is within our community because our community members with Parkinson's are not out and about. I want to make sure today that everyone here knows there is a local resource to assist people with Parkinson's and caregivers. We have been serving the Coachella Valley community for 35 years. We have practical resources, emotional support, education, information, and probably most valuable are the one-on-one consultations that we do with people with Parkinson's and family members. We are funded by the generosity of our local community, and I guess I have two requests today. My first is to take some time to familiarize yourself with your local resource for Parkinson's, that is Parkinson's Resource Organization. Think about whether you know anyone with Parkinson's and make sure that they know about us. And my second request is that you do keep the Parkinson's community in mind as you consider funding opportunities over the coming year, including the upcoming community grant. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Are there any other members of the public that wish to comment on items that are not on the agenda? Please state your name when you get to the lectern.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Chris Mayu, M-A-Y-O-U, and for almost 6 months of the year, I reside at Outdoor Resort Palm Springs. I'm a native Californian. I'm involved in the community. I have volunteered at CV Rep and other theaters. I volunteer for 2 different outdoor organizations here in Coachella Valley. So I do consider myself a citizen of Cathedral City, even though I cannot vote in these local elections. But I just wanted to share something that happened to me earlier this year. I had a friend come down to visit. She was staying in a timeshare down in La Quinta, and I drove down to pick her up, and we were gonna go do a hike. And she got in my car and she said, "It smells like you've been smoking pot in here." No, I have not. It's because my car is parked at Outdoor Resort Palm Springs, and I'm probably 400 feet away from that facility. So I just want you folks to know this is not fair for us. It needs to be taken care of. So thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak? I see none, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Next, we will have council reports. May I start with you, please, council member?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Appreciate it. Okay. First, I got to talk and thank Adam and Ryan for such a great job they did yesterday at the Amphitheater. My daughter was out there with those Nathan all beef 100% hot dogs. They were delicious. I've eaten about a dozen of them, so I can. Thank you for that. But thank you for that. It's a wonderful event, great entertainment. So appreciate it very, very much. And then I was contacted by a business owner, Jimmy's Equipment. He's been in the city for years. And he was concerned about U.S. Rentals parking on the street, causing congestion and everything. And I believe Code Compliance has gone out there. I pass it on to Ann and Charlie, and I believe Eric's going to go out there to see how he can relocate. He's just outgrown his store there, so that we have a program that we can assist and help find a new location for U.S. Rentals. And I'm really excited to see that going through. And then I attended along with council a wonderful day at the Senior Inspiration Luncheon. Had a great lunch there. And then with a special meeting last week. And then I went to the Meatball Festival. And congratulations, Charlie. You finally won the big crown. Good. And I don't know what the chief, how the police department do. We won't mention. Number 1? Okay. It was a lot of fun. Every year it just keeps getting bigger and better. And
Give him the finger.
pardon me? Okay. And then I'm glad the Outdoor Resorts group is here today because I do frequent the C4, not on the premises, but on phone. I contact David once a week to get a response. And as of this morning, I took some notes, and I believe Andy can contest to this too. Despite what you might believe, they're working on this diligently. They're installing more scrubbers, new filtration system. This is what he was telling me this morning. They're also installing an air quality monitoring tracking system on the northwest side and the southeast side of the building. They figure if they could track it and there's an odor, they can go right then and there and find out where the leakage is, what's going on with it, and try to stop that from whatever area that the odor is coming from. So they'll be able to pinpoint it. And I believe the city would be in this program too, so we would have access to the computer and the response. But they're sparing no cost. That's not the question. And he really wants to do some outreach with the public to let them know that they are working on it as best they can. The city's been working with him. I believe if I can get a nod from Andy, he submitted some, what do you call it, plans today about some new equipment. Okay, all right. Well, he said he was to put in some new filters in there. So he's, oh yeah, then he wants to do also creating a complaint line where you could call immediately to this complaint line. They would be able to get right on it then and there instead of going code compliance driving out there. This here would be a direct line. So I know this has been very painful for each and one of you, and I feel really bad about that. I really do. I think council agrees, but despite the moratorium, they're working on it. The city's working with it. Andy works with them, and I'll do my best. And you got my phone number anytime. It's on my card. You call me anytime you want. Let me know. And my feelings don't get hurt too bad. I mean, I understand. So you can give me a call, and I'll answer, and I'll always pick up the phone and talk to you. So with that being said, Madam Mayor, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your comments. Councilmember Gutierrez, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Since we last met, I attended the Cathedral City Senior Center Health Fair. It was well attended. They had quite a few booths or stands of people offering information to anybody that attended the place that would walk in. And also, the fire department had an emergency preparedness meeting, you can say, or presentation. There was quite a few people that were intrigued to find out what they had to say, and they were pleased to hear the fire department do this presentation. And at the end, they had a question and answer, and they were all really happy to hear that presentation. I also attended, last Wednesday, the special Cathedral City Council meeting in which we heard from the economic development, and which includes the planning, building, code enforcement division, and also our economic development director. And I met with our city manager to go over tonight's agenda and a few other issues that arise during our meetings. And just like Councilmember Carnevale here, I also attended the Cathedral City Boys and Girls Meatball Festival. Every time I go there, it seems to be growing by leaps and bounds. It was well attended. The meatballs were delicious. Charlie's was one of my favorites, and it was just they fundraised quite a bit of money, which goes to a great cause for all the great work that they do for kids in our community. I also heard from several of our residents regarding illegal food vendors and also vehicles parked or commercial vehicles parked in residential areas. I forwarded these complaints to our city manager, and he took care of it. Immediately, the cars were removed, and also the illegal vendors, they're going to continue to arrive, to come about, but our code enforcement division is doing a great job trying to either help them or to tell them to go on their way. And what else did I do here? Tomorrow I'll be attending the Coachella Valley Association of Committee, and I will let you know to see what we'll talk about tomorrow. And next Wednesday, we'll be having another special city council meeting. It will start at 2 o'clock. It will go until about 4 o'clock. And we'll be hearing from our engineering department. And prior to our next regular meeting, in 2 weeks, we will be celebrating Easter. And I just want to wish everyone a happy Easter. And that concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. Councilmember Lamb?
And council, before we move on, IT did let me know we're having a little trouble hearing on the stream, so if we can all just speak into the microphone. Thank you.
Look, I moved it down and everything.
Great. How's this? Can you hear? Okay, perfect. I wanted to just mention, it was mentioned briefly during our budget presentation, but Desert Recreation is again going to be working with the cities, and we're going to be providing the swim program, the pool program at Cathedral City High School, and they're looking for lifeguards. So anybody is interested, there you go. I did attend the Autism of the Inland Empire Art Festival. It was held at our amphitheater, and they do several community programs throughout the Riverside County throughout the year. But it's amazing. Our mayor was there, and we crossed paths as we went from booth to booth. And it's just such a wonderful program, and the resources that are available to families and children and schools and community members. I mean, it's unbelievable. So if you know someone with autism, we are an autism certified city. So with all the resources available, it's just wonderful that we can provide that much support to our community members. I also crossed paths with the mayor at the Veterans Expo. I'm sure Mayor Ross will talk about the first part of it that she attended, and I was lucky enough to be able to attend the second part and honor 4 wonderful people who are honored for their service to the United States. And I want to mention their names: Ron Heath, Staff Sergeant Leilana Hesse, Sergeant First Class Retired Cecilia Gonzalez, she is a paratrooper, and Sergeant Noah Edwards. And this was all held at the Cathedral City Salvation Army, and they do an amazing job of putting this whole county program together. I wasn't able to attend last night's Tastes and Sounds. I did attend the ABBA Fab the week before, but I certainly want to recognize Ryan and Adam and everybody who has created this idea and made it such an integral part of our community. I was walking to my mailbox, and my neighbors walked by. They spend 6 months of the year in Washington State and 6 months here, and they said it has become the hallmark of their time down here, because every Tuesday they got something to do, and it's lots of fun. They've met lots of people, and they bring their own little tote bag, and anyway, they're having a blast. So it's just a wonderful asset, and I want to thank you for that. Mayor Ross and I will be holding interviews for committee members for the Historic Preservation Committee, which is a volunteer organization, volunteers in the community who sit and freely give up their own time to make decisions about how we can benefit the city and how we can improve it. There are lots of committees. There's the architectural review, there's the planning committee, there's public arts. So if you have an opportunity and want to get involved, this is a great way to give back to your community. Eileen mentioned the Parkinsons, and I wanted to say that I met Eileen at Yoga in the Amphitheater, and they have a manned information booth during the Yoga in the Amphitheater for those the 10 or 12 weeks that program, and they were always there, and we had over 100 people at the different yoga sessions, one at 8:30 and one at 10, and they were at both. So it was a wonderful way to get the word out about another resource available to our community. So thank you. Thank you for being here and raising the level of knowledge for all of us. I was able to attend the Shredded event. If you have any lingering notions about that it's too late in the year to have a New Year's resolution, it's not too late. We still have a couple shredding events before the summer hiatus, and then it starts again in October. But it's the first Saturday of the month from 8 to 9, and it's easy peasy. You just drive your car up, open the trunk, they take it out, and away you go. So easy to do. Thank you to our police department and especially the motorcycle patrol. The congestion on Cathedral Canyon and Highway 111 gets pretty hairy at times, and they were just kind of doing their thing, riding up and down, slowing the traffic, and it's another way that we protect our residents and raise that level of awareness about how crazy that corridor can get. So I really appreciate your efforts of that. I had a resident, we have so many wonderful residents, and she sent me a link to the Climate Action Plan designed by Tempe, Arizona. And we were talking earlier, Kevin had given us a wonderful presentation about the budget, and what they've done as part of their action plan, as they go forward, repaving parking lots and redoing that, it's all with sun-reflective materials. Knowing that Tempe, Arizona has about the same the temperature that we do here, hot, so they're doing things to protect us in the future. And I just started to read that, but I'll get a little bit more involved in that, and it's certainly something that we can talk about and think about as we go forward with our strategic plan tweaking. And I wanted to end on this note. Last council meeting, the council approved street sign toppers for Jane Rasco and Diane Gill. And Diane Gill is deceased. And we have these wonderful sign toppers that say Jane Rasco and Diane Gill Way. And the community had a mock-up done, and we presented it to Jane yesterday, and her family was present, and it was just wonderful. And we got to Art Gregory and Sue Townsley and Bill Humphreys were prime movers in community organizing for this, and what Jane and Diane, their contributions to just the Cove community, defining it, it's really elevated the Cove community. So we so appreciate their efforts on that. And just one note about an event that's coming up, because we're all budget-minded, thank you, Kevin, and everybody. Riverside County State of the County is April 17th, and that's always a wonderful review. And it'll help us, kind of see what they're thinking of in terms of what's happening nationwide and globally and how it affects our county and then, of course, our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, sounds like everyone's been busy since our last regular meeting, the last Wednesday in March. As my colleagues shared, I also attended the Senior Inspiration Awards at Fantasy Springs, put on by the County Supervisor, 4th District County Supervisor Vin Manuel Perez. And again, congratulations to Antonio Beishu for his award, and good job, Mayor, for your part in the presentation. And then that next weekend, I joined the city manager, the fire chief, and deputy fire chief, fire marshal, and others on a little trip over to for the fire department to formally to the board of the CPSC. I think that's the Center for Public Safety Excellence, their fire board for accreditation. It seemed like it was just one short meeting, but a long drive. No, we flew out to, it was in Orlando. So Sunday went out on Sunday, came back on Tuesday. The actual hearing was on Monday afternoon. It was, we all got to go up to the front table, and there was a panel of 13 I don't know if they were trustees or board members of that organization. They had, of course, they had sent staff out earlier and out here and done a field visit, and had worked with the chief on a number of issues that he's continuing to roll out. Some of them we saw in the budget requests that came. And after grilling him a little bit, they were nice to the city manager and me. They thanked us for coming, but they did make a point to show how it showed that the city management and the city council both supported making the fire department better. And so with that, they voted unanimously to approve accreditation. So the fire department is now accredited through that CPSE. So it was a successful hearing. It would have not been so good if we went all the way to Orlando and they didn't vote to accreditate us, but they did. So that's not a one-time thing. That'll be ongoing. There are a number of projects that they're requiring, and then my guess would be after you get some of them done, they're probably going to add some more to try to make sure that we continue to have the best fire department we can. This is a national, actually international hearing. They did us in little groups of 3 locations, and it was it Fairfax, Virginia? Fairfax, Virginia went before us, and then Surprise, Arizona, and then us. And then if you looked at the agenda just for that day, they had 5 days of these hearings. So they did have a little bit of length to them, and they did grill the fire chief pretty good, I thought, but he did a nice job of responding. So that was successful. And then upon returning, we did last Wednesday have our budget hearing, as has been mentioned, with Community and Economic Development. That was good. And then on that Friday, I did attend a ribbon cutting along with the mayor and Victor from the Economic Development Department at Angels, Black Tiger, Martial Arts and Fitness. And this is up in the Stater Brother parking lot. And the Stater Brothers, it's up at Vistachino and Landau, and got to meet all of the people there. They actually, after the ribbon cutting, they did some demos for a little while. And one of the ones doing the demos, he had his Oscar with him because he had won an Oscar, I think, for Shogun. Shogun here, just here as part of the group of martial artists. So this is although it's a new business to Cathedral City, this is a longtime business that was located in Banning, and the owners decided to relocate to be closer to family, to his grandchildren, and so he's bringing his successful business here to Cathedral City. So we're happy, thanks to the Chamber for their part in getting this all together. We're happy to have him in Cathedral City and hopefully be a long successful tenure here. And then, as my colleagues also did, that weekend on April 6th and April 6th, I attended the Boys and Girls Club of Cathedral City, their 13th annual Meatball Festival. So again, congratulations to everyone that participated and won awards. It's one of their big fundraisers, and as a independent nonprofit, I know they really appreciate the city's assistance in all the different ways that we do to help make sure they have a successful fundraiser. And then last Monday, April 7th, I did attend a couple of meetings at the Coachella Valley Association of Government. The first one was the Interstate 10 Ad Hoc Committee. I'm not technically on the committee yet, although a couple of cities have left. As an ad hoc committee, it's made up of less than a majority of the Transportation Committee, and it focuses on issues specifically dealing with I-10. And so the committee did hear an update from Caltrans and had some back and forth dialogue on Caltrans projects and maintenance. And then there was also lengthy discussion about some of the walls that are out there on the interstate that get graffiti, and of course the frustration because some of them are under Caltrans control, some of them are under Union Pacific's control and regulations, and some are maybe some that the cities could deal with as far as either graffiti removal, or there was some talk about there may be some that are appropriate if a city wants to do a mural, but there would need to be some licensing with both Caltrans and Union Pacific if it was in one of those areas. So there's an initiative. It'll take a while that's underway for that to roll out. But if that comes to be, that we may bring that back and see if maybe the Arts Commission or somebody wants to participate with that, if there's some appropriate places. They actually mentioned the Daypalm exit. They feel like there's a couple of appropriate walls there that that might just need some licensing from Caltrans to be able to change the graffiti into something a little more palatable and pleasant to the eye. So it will come at the executive committee. They did ask for if I would serve on that ad hoc committee, and there was also a nomination for Kathleen Fitzpatrick from La Quinta, so you're going to see that, Mayor, on the agenda there. And then right after that, I also participated in the actual Transportation Committee meeting. There was a short break, and then that committee came in and met went through in detail and a lot of questions and some additional contracts that were needed to move towards hopefully at least this step of the completion of CV Link. And then, of course, it's moving to be extended with the county paying for half all the way down to the Salton Sea. So that will be continuing. You're going to see that on the executive committee when it comes. And then there was, again, some additional work on the CV Sync, which is the synchronization of traffic signals on many of the corridors. so there was some continued work that was needed there. And then, of course, for the Transportation Commission, one of the big things to do is the traffic project prioritization study. That process continues, and there's a request for a consultant to continue working on that, and so they'll also see that on the executive committee. So you're going to have a busy executive committee meeting, lots of things on the agenda.
That's a lot in our city. That's great.
That's right. And then yesterday I did attend the Taste and Sounds here with Leanne and Miguel in Cathedral City. It was nice and toasty warm. We like it that way here, but very, very nice. They did a great job, and the food vendor was there working away, lots of things to do, quite well attended again, so I was happy to be able to participate in that. And then today I went out to Riverside for the Riverside County Transportation Commission meeting, and there were, of course, a number of items on there, and I had mentioned before that they were looking at what to do about call boxes, and they are going to do a study upcoming about what should be done as far as trying to mitigate traffic safety on the freeways, but the call boxes are very problematic because they get very few calls, and there's no one around left that really wants to repair them, so they will be working on winding down the call boxes and looking at other alternatives for traffic safety. Almost everyone has a cell phone, but there were, over the last year, a few calls that were medical, or I think there was one that was a fire call that there was a call box there, but how do you know which call box is going to be used? So they did do quite a bit of analysis on it, so at least I was happy to see that, because I don't like those kind of decisions. I'm sure no one here wants any decision like that made lightly without a good analysis, so that will continue. But they will be winding down the call boxes. So if you want to take a picture with a call box, they're mostly between Cactus City and Blythe and a few up the hill. This will be your opportunity in the next couple of months, because it'll eventually be going away.
That's your question on that. They can't do a cell phone call box?
They are cell phone call boxes. They are cell phone.
They are cell phones.
Right. And they have to, as you know, cell phones upgrade. Over the years, they've had to upgrade them. And yes, there used to be more than 1,000 here in Riverside County. I think they're down to like about 180 now, and they used to get 28,000 calls a year, and I think last year they had like 280 or something like that. So, it's just like less than 3 calls per call box, and of course they aren't spread out like that. But when you look at which ones were used, there were only a couple that were used a couple of times. Sometimes they were just people calling because they thought they could get a free tow if they used a call box, and when they said no, we'll call somebody for you, they'd say, never mind, I'll call them on my cell phone. So there's very few of them that were actually, I think there was maybe like 7 that they actually classified as emergencies, and then the problem with that is they weren't all in one location, so, and there were alternatives. So they'll be continuing work on, are there alternatives, is there signage? I told them one thing, that they said everybody has a cell phone, so even if their cell phone doesn't work, somebody else can call if they come by. I said, well, a lot of times I don't call anymore because you assume everybody has a cell phone and they've already called. So maybe if we need to do some public education about, if you see somebody waving at you, call anyways, or something like that. They'll be doing a study about what can be done. And with that, I will conclude. I do want to say that it is festival season, so we will have a lot of visitors here in the valley. A lot of them will be at the other end of the valley, but traffic will surely get affected here. If you plan to drive out of the valley on Monday, probably anytime, but Monday morning for sure, you might want to stay here. If you are going to try to come back into the valley Thursdays or Fridays, you might want to redo your plans, because it will affect the interstate. And then if you're going over to the East Valley, well, bless you, and pack some patience with you, because it is festival season. It brings a lot of good PR for our valley, and a lot of money to all around. But it is a little bit of a chore. Hopefully our code compliance is going to make sure they're fully staffed in case we have STVR issues, because we have had some years in the past, but well, hopefully not. But sometimes this is a party weekend, even though we have a limited amount of STVRs, and there may be some people that are attempted to run unlicensed ones during these weekends because they can make big money. So it's got its good and its bad. I know that I got behind a couple of motorhomes on the 60 coming in on my way back from Riverside today, and I suspect that they might be involved with the festivals. Either they might be staff, but I thought, oh boy, this is going to be fun here coming up. And also, it is spring break for the Palm Springs Unified School District. They started on Monday. I don't think they go back until the 21st, the day after Easter. So make sure you watch out for kids playing out there, and expect to see extra kids at the parks and around. I know I didn't know it was spring break, but I went to the park midday on Monday, and I thought, why are these kids here? They should be in school. I'm going to be that age. Why are these kids in the park? They should be at school. And then so I thought, well, let me look online to see when the spring break is, and sure enough, it had started. So everyone, just make sure that you are aware and drive safely. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Eileen, Ernesto wants your phone number for the Parkinson's place, so before you go, can the two of you connect? And the good news is, so many of us do the same things, and I marked off about half of what I'm going to talk about. I met with our events director, Ryan Wave, and communications, because the State of the City's coming, and he is working diligently on it, and every now and again he pulls me in to show me what he's done, and it's all amazing. I have attended many meetings this month regarding the Animal Campus. And I don't even like to talk about the Animal Campus anymore, but this time I do, because we are really making some strides. I am beyond pleased to share that things are really heading in the right direction, but like a boat, you can't just point it in the right direction and go to sleep. So we have a plethora of improvements that will take some time, energy, and collaboration, but I can assure you we are working towards a campus you can be immensely proud of, and the secret is transparency. We had 2 meetings with the city manager and a budget meeting in Chambers this last Wednesday. On the 4th, I participated in the food bank telethon, where we raised by night's end about $300,000. The food bank has lost all of its federal funding. It needs your help. It needs you to ask your neighbors for help. This is money that pays for food for people who don't have enough food. It's a big one. On the 4th, that was it. I represented us at the Visit Greater Palm Springs monthly meeting, and of course things are in a bit of a turmoil, with so many of our valued Canadians have gone home, and many saying they will not be returning, at least not now. Let's hope for the spring and maybe things will change up a bit. I also represented us along with Councilmember Lamb at the Salvation Army, like she spoke to. I did the first half, she did the second half, so it was really great to be able to support so many of our veterans. I got to do the first half because that afternoon I married a couple on the steps of City Hall. So that's always a fun thing to do. You know, there's just no greater moment of a marriage than that first day. And it's always an honor and a privilege to be a part of people's lives on such a memorable day. Okay, you know it's true though, right? It's the best day. Bob and I attended the Autism Festival in the amphitheater, and I know a couple people have said that we're an autism city, and we are, but all of the council members also got personal, and I believe some of our other staff did too, got personal autism certificates for themselves. This morning, I was one of 3 judges in the Fast Pitch Business Ideas. There were a total of the top 6 from a long list of businesses who would have liked to have been chosen. They competed for a chance to win $20,000 by telling you about an idea they have for a business. And people are so creative. I could that's probably not my thing, but theirs is, and I'm in awe. I'm like a puppy looking up at them. Wow, you're so cool. And they were cool. And they have a chance to win $20,000 today and then earn a spot in the Startup World Cup Grand Finale in San Francisco with a chance to win $1 million. And can you imagine if you were a startup, how that would just change everything. So I was really excited for them. I just want to end by being a little squishy, a little soft-hearted, and I'm not usually. But I just want you to know that I am glad, lucky, and privileged to live in Cathedral City and to serve you along with my fellow council members and quality staff. I feel as though we have a special place here, And I know we will do all we can to preserve the equality we pride ourselves in here in our town. And winding it up, we have one less Taste and Sounds, and I can't believe Rita didn't tell you because it's Giselle Wu. And she's a wooer. She is a wooer for sure. But that will be our final one until fall. What's our next? Yeah, until November 4th. So tell your friends, grab your dogs, come on, have a good time. And then lastly, and this is quite cryptic, I have been invited to a fundraiser tomorrow night, a major fundraiser with the Senior Center, and I have been asked to participate in something disruptive. I feel like I'm back in the 60s again. Okay, that wraps it up, and we are moving on with our council meeting now. So please, City Clerk, will you read the consent agenda?
Yes, Mayor. Item 3A is to waive full reading of ordinances on the agenda. Item 3B is the approval of the March 26, 2025 study session and regular City Council meeting minutes, and the April 2nd, 2025 special City Council meeting minutes. Item 3C is to accept the resignation of Ruth Fernandez from the Finance Advisory Committee and the Mobile Home Fair Practices Commission. Item 3D is the ratification of council appointments to various local agencies. And that concludes the consent agenda.
Thank you very much. Are there any members of the public who'd wish to comment on any of those items?
We did not receive any request to speak forums, and I see none, Mayor.
And I've been reminded, and I'm going to take it a little bit out of position, but City Attorney, can you report out from our closed session?
Yes, Mayor, I would be happy to. We had two items on our closed session this earlier during the end of our 3 o'clock session. The first was item of labor negotiations. You heard from City Manager as your labor negotiator, had a briefing, there was no reportable action. The second item were actually 2 items of anticipated litigation. You had a briefing from the City Attorney on both of those, gave direction to the City Attorney. There was no other reportable action.
Thank you very much. Sorry for the hesitation there, sir. And did we move approval of his? No, I'm circling back to it now. I just wanted to pull him in before we did. So do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move approval.
So we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Gregory and a second by Councilmember Lamb. Please vote.
Thank you all. We have no public hearing items, and as the city manager mentioned in the beginning, we are making a bit of a flop on the order in which we're doing our 3 items. So we do have Ryan Hunt here too.
And Mayor, just for the record, that motion did carry all ayes.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I'll just take a second to introduce this, Mayor, because I think there's an important point to make on this, as we're calling it a preliminary approval of this contract, which the details will have to be worked out and put into the formal contract document, which will come to you at the next meeting. We also bid out 3 of our other events for contact promoters, and they will come at the next meeting. This one we had to come early and do a preliminary because it has the shortest time frame between now and when the event is, and it's critical that all the parties are aware of what's going on so that we can get rolling on that. Ryan?
Thank you, City Manager. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, I also want to commend our Mayor Pro Tem, as he often does, with keeping financial transparency in mind. We had a late addition to the agenda to be able to have the cost and technical proposals for your review and to the public's review. So I wanted to mention that, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for catching that as we move forward. And on that topic of financial transparency, I've received a lot of questions from the public. You know, why are we doing this for all 4 of our events? Why are we going out for RFP? I think it's good and healthy for our residents and our taxpayer dollars to make sure we're good stewards and to see what else is out there from time to time. It had been a few years since we had gone out to RFP for a lot of our signature events, and we were really, really happy with the engagement and the bids that we received. All of the bids. We really appreciate everybody being a part of this process. So I'll move forward with the presentation. So strategic plan goal. This is supporting goal F3, which is to promote additional community events and celebrations. You hear that one from me a lot, but certainly the Balloon Festival being are probably our most popular, at least in attendance, and longest lasting signature events. Certainly excited to talk about the future of the Balloon Festival. You know a lot of this, but I think it's good to kind of refresh and remind the public that this event is a signature event held the weekend before Thanksgiving each year, from several thousand local attendees and its origin stage, with Chris Parman. Give him a lot of kudos for getting this off the ground. This is now, through the foundational support and the legacy of that event, continued to build to 35,000 plus attendees, which was a record for 2024. So really excited about that. Generates significant economic benefits for the greater Palm Springs region. That's why it was a priority for us to have a representative from Visit Greater Palm Springs, Colleen Pace, who's the Director of Sales and Marketing for that group. Really appreciate her contribution to the panel. This is an event that they're very interested in and invested in some drive market billboards each year that they give us for the LA and San Diego markets, and promoting it in various ways on their website and social media. So we appreciate them. The prime location is certainly a benefit. The Downtown Arts and Entertainment District, not just the activity that we see at the festival itself, by how many restaurants are benefiting from this festival, the foot traffic that we are able to increase in downtown. And so it's really nice. And, sometimes you'll even have CV Rep having activities as well. It's a full weekend of a lot of fun, and we're really, really excited about where this is going to head into the future. So some of the highlights of the festival, I think the Balloon Glow is certainly top of mind for everybody. We certainly had a great addition, thanks to you all as a council for your contribution for Leanne Rhymes. I think that was really taking it to the next level to have that type of AV experience, and for residents and visitors to be able to enjoy that. Live entertainment, headline performances, that's kind of on the same topic there. Our food vendors and beer and wine garden, obviously want to make sure everybody's fed and happy, and the food and beverage department. Our artisan market and family entertainment zones, really prioritizing a lot for our kids. The Touch a Truck experience, having great participation from our police department, our fire department. You'll see them all over the place at our festivals. We really, really appreciate it, Chief, and Chief Contreras in the back as well. So Chief Crum for the police department, thank you for your support. Tethered balloon rides, obviously any of the balloon, whether it be launches or tethered rides, are always weather permitting. It can be finicky with the wind, but we had a pretty successful year last year. Didn't have to cancel too many of the launches because of weather cooperating. So we hope for good weather in 2025 as well. So to give kind of some transparency on the process, so the RFP was issued on January 24th. The question deadline was February 14th. Answers were posted for that by February 20th, and then the proposal deadline was March 7th. Our evaluation criteria, based on the scoring and feedback from our panel, they judged upon past production experience, quality event productions, size of event experience, the marketing communications plan, what they've done, what they plan to do to be able to promote the festival, which is important. Festival implementation plan, logistics and safety being top of mind is always nice to know. Booking entertainment abilities, government staff experience. How often have you worked with local government entities? How long have you talked to our police and fire entities across the country, and our public works department as well. And then budgeting experience. Financial transparency is huge, and it's certainly something that we hope to improve moving forward with this event. I'm really, really excited about that. Community involvement. Are nonprofits are they engaged? Are we getting local business and restaurant participation? That's certainly something that you all have tasked me in my current role to be able to provide, and we continue to hope to improve in that area as well. I think we had a great representation by our Boys and Girls Club last year, and we'd love to have our volunteers. We also want to thank Palm Springs Unified School District, who sends us a great representation of volunteers each year as well. The evaluation panel was led by me, the Communications and Events Manager, Chris Parman, Events Consultant, and 2025 LGBT Plus Days event producer, also kind of the founder of this particular event, the Balloon Festival, with the support of council. Adam Chastain, our Events and Recreation Coordinator. Colleen Pace, as I mentioned, she's the Chief Sales and Marketing Officer for Visit Greater Palm Springs, and then Aaron Highland, the Parks and Community Events Commission Chair. The proposals we received were from Sound Skills, Revel Republic, Fantasy Balloon Flights, and JJLA. So the evaluation results. So the scoring summary, as you can see, Sound Skills did have the highest score from our panel. We have Steve Clayton, owner and operator of Sound Skills, here to answer any questions that you have. I know he's a familiar face. He's done our Taste of Jalisco Festival for the last several years. He's also worked on our LGBT Plus Days event in the past. So he's certainly a familiar face, but really appreciate his bid and proposal as part of a competitive process. So what are some of Sound Skills' strengths? I think you probably are aware of some of them, but their extensive experience producing large-scale events, including hot air balloon festivals, or at least working on hot air balloon components and other major community events. I think the one thing that I really value about Sound Skills is when you see how many employees and staff are there to support what is a lean and mean operation and communications and events, and supporting obviously our police, fire, public works, et cetera. So marketing and promotion, we've had some really great experiences from a marketing standpoint, but we look forward to being able to build on that. This will be a transition of a new third-party event operator pending your approval, and so obviously there's some work to do to be able to refresh and kind of make that transition. Implementation plan, really we're happy with addressing balloon operations, being proactive. I'm going to skip down a little bit, but Steve Clayton and Sound Skills have hired Carol Popejoy Davis, the former executive director of the Temecula Valley Balloon and Wine Festival for 17 years, to be a part of this process with them. She is the current executive director of CalFest, has been hired as a consultant, as I mentioned, and under her leadership, the Temecula Balloon and Wine Festival has grown to attract 40,000 attendees annually. So really going to, I appreciate the proactivity related to not waiting and being reactive, but going and being, to make sure that we have a balloon expertise as part of this proposal was really, really important, and I appreciate that.
Excuse me, Ryan, if
Yes.
I could interrupt.
Yeah.
You know, I really like what I've heard so far, but my only concern right now, has Steve ever worked with Popejoy before in the past? Or this is new?
Steve, do you want to answer that one?
Because, you know, we're familiar with Fantasy. They always bring the balloons, correct? And now we're switching over to another company. I just want to guarantee that, you know, what I read here is really exciting, but she's going to deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, that's a great question. Carol Davis, we have not specifically worked together on a project before.
Lift that microphone up a little bit higher there.
On a project before. She has been with the Temecula Valley Balloon Wine Festival, like I said, as the executive director for 17 years. She left a number of years ago. She actually grew that to over 70,000 people. She's now the director of CalFest, which is California Festival and Fairs and Festivals Convention, and I'm one of the presenters on that. Her office is in Temecula. Our office is in Temecula. We have collaborated as colleagues on events and industry standards and speaking at different conferences, but not specifically working on a project. I think the benefit that she brings as a consultant, and let's be clear, we don't even have a contract to offer her as a scope of work yet. So like we're kind of putting the cart before the horse, but what we've done is kind of positioned her as the balloon expert in this, where we deliver the rest of the plan, the marketing, the vendors, the talent coordination, and those kinds of elements.
So you're hiring her as a consultant, so she'll be an employee of you, and she will be, doing the balloon end of the festival.
Correct, yes. Her connections for balloons, international balloons, specialty balloons, things like that, is what we wanted to bring to the table, because we knew we didn't have that element. Although we have done balloon events before in terms of like balloon glows or tethered rides as elements of a festival, specifically even in Cathedral City. We've also done them in Temecula. But to be balloon forward, we wanted to bring in an expert, and that's how that partnership came about.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Because I think we're all very used to your experience running festivals, and so we can go on and on about that, but I don't think I have any discomfort about that at all. But with this being a very specialized type of festival, you need to have balloon operators, and so that's the part that's a little unclear to me. That our prior vendor their strength was that they worked regularly with a pool of balloon operators, either some that they operated, it sounds like some that they operated themselves, and then they also had other people that had balloons or part of a balloon club, or and so then it was they could bring a huge contingent of modern, different shaped and all different kinds of balloons. So this is the part I'm just not really clear of. I know you can run a great event, but who's going to do the balloons? And then when you say, well, she was the executive director and she's currently an executive at CalFest, that's great. I think she sounds like she has experience, but the question goes unanswered. Well, does she have the ability to bring in groups of balloon operators?
Yeah, I think I tried to answer that right there. Is absolutely. I mean, her connections in this industry, skill and creating systems is primary. But connections go a long way. And her being the executive director for 17 years, her Rolodex and repertoire of balloon operators is vast. It's international. It's cross states. I think potentially, and not trying to speak out of turn, but potentially, there's a difference between a balloon operator running a festival and a festival operator running a festival that brings in a balloon component to manage that aspect. And I think that's what, our strength will be, is our familiarity with the city and the city systems, the familiarity with the infrastructure, the familiarity with the market, and to add the balloon element of it, that's why we wanted to partner with Carol.
Okay, so when this contract does come, it'll be structured in such a way that finding, hiring, coordinating the balloons and the balloon operating, that'll be on you. That won't be on city staff to try to do that.
On us. And we had preliminary conversations with Grape Escape, CLO Balloons.
Okay.
I was going to say, I think we were a slide early, so the next slide does address some of the balloon operators that have been consulted.
All right.
Yeah, and so being based in Temecula, and some of our business associates, Ken Smith, who owns Galway Downs, owns 2,000 acres of Temecula at wineries and things like that. Like, their connections with these balloon operators are a phone call away. I've already had preliminary conversations. I can't contract them because I don't have a contract. Right. But I mean, I've already had preliminary conversations to tee these up.
Well, and I guess that's what we're asking you. You have confidence that you're going to be able to deliver a high quality product that we're going to be happy with, considering what we've had, because the balloon portion has been good, before. Yeah. So I don't think we want to see and I think our constituents would be disappointed to see a step down in that area. So
yeah, I plan on treating this like any other city municipal contract. And the first step is the deep dive. It's a deep dive with key stakeholders. It's the Dropbox files of images and whatever the assets the city can provide us, to understand a little bit more about what went well, what needs to be changed, and how we can implement those changes to make the event more successful.
All right. Thank you all. If I have other questions, they're going to have to do with budget. We can do those.
Just to piggyback on Mayor Pro Tem, how many balloons did we have last year?
We had about 25 to 30, I believe.
So possibly in the contract, we could say minimum of 25?
Yeah, we actually have made some progress with working with Eric's office and an attorney to be able to have an updated contract of where we thought we needed to improve some certain areas of what would be expected of this particular festival and event, and guaranteeing or having some language about the number of balloons that are expected. We can certainly work that into the contract agreement. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
So really, more of it is just mostly, sound skills, as I mentioned, and as Mayor Pro Tem already kind of touched on. I think you're well aware of their resume and their experience. The Hunting Beach 4th of July Festival, Upland Lemon Festival, two of their bigger ones. They are headquartered in Temecula, as I mentioned, but we do really hope to be able to make this new and exciting, in addition to building on the foundation of what this event has been in the past. There will be a transition period moving from one operator to another. But I plan to be committed to make that transition as smooth as possible with your support as a city council, and really focus on some of the other components that I feel like the balloons were, as you mentioned, really, I think, spectacular. Some of the other components, I think we have some work to do and some ways we can improve. So I mentioned the strategic partnership, a Grape Escape balloon adventure, 30 plus years in the balloon business, Temecula Valley Balloon and Wine Festival founding operator. Steve has had preliminary dialogue and conversations with them, and Celio Balloons, which also brings 20 plus years of flying in Temecula and Greater Southern California as a balloon operator. So the next steps would be to negotiate detailed contract terms, timelines, deliverables, and payment schedules. The cost proposals that were sent to you, I believe 3 out of the 4 were above what is currently the proposed budgeted amount for the next 2 fiscal years, which I think currently sits at $145K for the first year and $153,000 or so for the second year. It is obviously my goal by the next meeting to return to council with a finalized agreement for approval. There is work to be done. We're not bypassing that part of the process. It's certainly something we take very seriously. And with this being kind of our treasured, kind of prized festival, we want to make sure that everything is, all of the T's are crossed and I's are dotted. So we'll be working to finalize the scope of services and event components. While Steve's bid cost proposal did come in higher than what is currently budgeted, he is open in good faith to negotiate if we do need to modify things to be able to get it to that current budgeted amount. We certainly can, and I take your direction as a council on that. So.
So we have a budget amount that we pay, but when I saw that, I wasn't overly concerned because I know there are usually some sponsors that come in. So would the sponsor money be able to maybe help with that gap?
Yeah, go for it.
Is that kind of the plan? I guess that's what I assumed the plan would be.
Certainly, with the Agua Caliente presenting sponsorship has certainly been a boon for the festival to be able to add additional revenue. That has been kind of the key sponsorship from a financial standpoint. We did have Rancho Mirage come on last year. I plan to renew that dialogue and conversations if we do have components there as part of that. So that would be an additional $30,000. But I'll let Steve kind of talk about what he thinks as far as the proposal.
Well, I have not yet done, a full deep dive, so I'm kind of speaking a little ahead of schedule here. But just in relation to other projects, Taste of Jalisco, for example, or even Upland Irish Festival, which is only a day and a half, those projects cost, in terms of expenses, almost $250,000 to put on. So as the city invests a certain dollar amount, it's on us where we're almost an investor in the project, also working on the project and also trying to make a living, trying to make some money. So without knowing a little bit more, but understanding that this is the signature event of the city, and then also realizing that last year, looking, full transparency, looking at what was spent last year, about almost $250,000 on this event last year, it would almost be a step backwards to go down, lower in the budget.
Yes, but last year included a special concert that was understood at the time was going to be a one-time. So
yeah, and that's fine. If that's the city's direction, that's the city's direction. I don't know that, from a transition and consumer standpoint, that's going to be taken the same way. I mean, obviously people are going to say, well, you transitioned and now you don't have a spectacular concert. It's probably going to be looked on like we changed it and it was our decision. We certainly will take direction from council, whatever they, decide, whichever direction you'd want to go.
So the question was, if we get sponsorships, does that help cover the gap, or was your quoted $200,000 to $300,000, was that you were assuming you would also get sponsorships on top of that?
If you're asking the gap to get for what came in at, I think was a range of $200,000 to $300,000, if what we achieved in sponsorships for the Balloon Festival would not have closed that gap based on last year. We had two.
You might need more.
Correct. Yeah. No. Absolutely.
And you're even mentioning numbers from last year. I'm like, well, that was last year's sponsorship.
Well, sure, but we hope to have some sustaining relationships from prior sponsors as well.
I got you.
So yeah.
All right. So I'm still hearing that we may get a gap, or you may come back with a proposal because what I was hearing here was, well, you know, it may not be enough money, you might have to put more money in, and that's a problem because we have a limited budget too. So if we're already running into that kind of problem,
I think
let's
what
go
I
ahead.
meant to say, Council or Mayor Pro Tem, is that I'm looking for guidance and feedback on that particular topic as we enter negotiations to bring back a contract forward to City Council. If the direction of the council is to stay within what is proposed already in the budget, we will do so.
I can also mention one more thing, being a business, for business, right? And we have staff and payroll, and we also burden a lot of the risk on these projects. Whatever that max budget is, that max budget is. We're not asking you to find extra money that you can't find that at all. But I think we need to tailor expectations to whatever that budget is all I'm saying. So, if the budget is $100,000, well, then we need to deliver $100,000 and expect $100,000. When we originally took on the Taste of Jalisco and LGBT Days, that first 2 years was a learning period. First year, we lost almost $30,000 on the project, in our investment to try to build this brand. So I envision whatever that dollar amount is and whatever that expectation is, that first year will be a rebrand. It will be we're going out to rebrand and rebuild this this festival in the direction that council wants to see it.
Well, I can only share my expectation, but my expectation is that a budget has been made from our perspective. There's different perspectives.
Sure.
It was an increase from prior budgets, taking out the special one-time cost.
Sure.
So I would expect if you're responded to a proposal, that you're going to come back with a proposal that meets that budget. Now, if you have flashy add-ons that you want to try to also bring at the same time, I'm not saying we wouldn't consider those, but we have a lot of other things that are requiring money and a very scary economic environment that we're facing too. So the last thing we want to do is to some degree, it doesn't matter that there might be a perceived step back off of what was supposed to be a one-time concert because people didn't understand that. It just might be reality. But I think you need to tell us what you can come back with, and hopefully by next meeting, I think it's going to be presented.
Yes.
Because if you're saying you can't do something that's as good as what we had last year minus the flashy concert, well, then we did have a vendor that we used before that we had that we do have issues with that would need to be worked out, but they were able to put on a show. So I'm just just unclear. Some of what you were saying kind of threw me a little bit because I was getting the feeling that you weren't going to come back with something we're going to be satisfied with that's going to be in budget.
I don't think in any way, shape, or form we're trying to downgrade the festival in any way. I do think, as I can tell you, based on the expenses of what was budgeted last year, we did run into a bit of an overage on what was spent. The cost of doing business in this space has increased, and as I mentioned, 3 of the 4 bids did come in a similar range to that. Obviously, the 4th did not, but that's where I think it's. But we did try to buffer that by the increase that was proposed to you all as a council. So I don't think in any way, shape, or form we're looking to downgrade the experience for our residents. And you're right, maybe it's not Leanne Rhymes, maybe it's something a little bit more economically responsible, and we can still have a good headline show while also still maintaining the balloon expectations. So I think certainly I consider myself a perfectionist in this particular space and would not put my integrity forward if I thought we were going to take a step back.
Yeah, this is a little difficult just because we usually see when a package has been presented, and so on. And I understand you're in the same position, you haven't had a chance to negotiate it out, but it's a little esoteric out there, it's hard to wrap our heads
There
around.
were certainly some delays as part of this process to go out to RFP that have put us up against the 8 ball. This is not in a perfect world how I would have liked to have started this process much earlier than coming to you on April 9th. So I acknowledge that 100% and always appreciate your feedback.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Gutierrez?
Yes, I do have a couple of questions. Thank you, Steve, for taking interest into our city events. My question is, have you attended the festival?
I have not. No. I've seen some YouTube videos and some, some of my own due diligence just online, but it has not been an event that I have attended in the past because I wasn't hired to. I try to stay away from festivals when I'm not working.
Now, from what you've seen and the conversations that you have with Ryan here, what would you do different with our festival?
Well, again, I would need to do a deep dive in terms of what went well and what didn't go good. So I don't know that I have an answer for you right now. All I know is our capabilities as an agency to produce festivals for city municipal governments all across the country, from the city of West Palm Beach, Florida, who's a client of ours, to 2 festivals in Texas, to the number of city municipal governments that we do in Southern California. I don't know what I would do differently because I haven't had those key stakeholder interviews to say, hey, this didn't go good and this is why, and we should change this.
I will, though, Councilmember, weigh in on that. But just from my perspective, since I do have the knowledge of working on this the past few years. What I can tell you is, from an event logistics scale, from an event entertainment scale, from all the nuanced levels of what goes in outside the balloons, which I think, quite frankly, have not quite grown the way that some of the other components have. I have full confidence that Steve can pull that off and make it something that we're really proud of, and also see a level of just the quality of production. Little things that I noticed this year, the information booth not lit up. I mean, I can go through a lot of things that I noticed that I feel like we're just quite sloppy, and I think we can clean up a few things, and I think Steve's experience on that will be an asset.
So let me ask you, since you touched on that, so what would you like to see to improve this event? What are your goals to improve the event to make it better?
Yeah, better Friday night. I think, the Friday night has become, in my opinion, not an afterthought, but something that I think could be more fully programmed. I think making sure that we are, I think Mayor Pro Tem brought up a great point. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but, having, when the Cathedral City's content is the focus, not having counter-programming as much to some of the other components of the festival. I really would like to make, it is the Cathedral City International Hot Air Balloon Festival. While we certainly did and hope to appreciate the support of Rancho Mirage, we want to make sure that branding and the Cathedral City components are really there. I think from a safety standpoint, from a security standpoint, what I saw from Taste of Jalisco, the planning meetings, the involvement that he had with our police department, our fire department, going through the process there, it's top notch. It's grade A. So I think that we can improve in a number of areas. I think hopefully we made it look really, really good last year, and I think there were a lot of things to be really proud of. I think thanks to your support as a council, we had the headline concert for the 10th anniversary that really did feel like an elevated experience. And so there's a lot that I think can be, but Friday in particular, and then the Sunday component, which was almost non-existent this year, the previous operator decided to not program a Sunday, which was obviously disappointing.
Now, I'm sorry. Yeah. Now, since you touched on entertainment, and you're very familiar with what we've done in the past, so you are planning in some sort of entertainment. I don't know the caliber, but are you planning different sources of different entertainment sources, or what?
I know you had another thought you wanted to.
Yeah, to answer this question specifically, absolutely on entertainment, and we would like to have a element of free entertainment for the residents and the community, as we do for Taste of Jalisco. I think the level of that entertainment kind of directly correlates with the budget, right? I mean, if we only have this amount of budget, we can only afford this amount of performer, right? So I think it's a direct correlation there. I was going to just take a quick moment to step back and say, I've been doing this 20 years, and it's taken me a while to understand, especially working with city municipal agencies as partners, really the why of the event, right? And the why is kind of twofold, right? It's quality of life for your residents, right? It's money coming back in. And it's TOT tax, it's an economic driver for tourism. It's putting Cathedral City on the map and branding it, and so that people from all around the region come in to this event. Maybe they go to a restaurant downtown, or they go to CV Rep to see a show, and then they leave and they say, oh, we had such a great time. CV Rep's having another show. We should go back into town, the other 362 days a year, right? So it's multifaceted, and we understand that our job is both to provide this quality of life for the residents, but also to try to drive this economic tourism. And I think that our reputation of what we've delivered previously in terms of the media that we've garnered and the TV and radio spots and things like that have really tried and attempted to lift the city of Cathedral City up and where the residents and the city council can be proud of.
Now, since we're talking about money, your contract, and how much money would you have to raise, it depends the entertainment you will bring. There's a cutoff date in which you're going to say, okay, it's in November, sometime in September is when I have to make my decision as to do all these contracts. When will that be?
In terms of the
contract? How much money you have raised, and the day you say, okay, this is when we have to cut off and work with this amount of money that we have. Sponsorship.
Yeah, so we take sponsorships even the week of. I mean, we bring, if there's a partner in the community that says, hey, I want to be part of this event, we kind of stop what we're doing and bring them on board as the best we can. I think when you're talking about budget, and I remember having this kind of conversation with council about 4 or 5 years ago as we led into our previous agreements. There's multiple ways that us as an agency can structure a deal. And so, I mean, I'll just be frank, right? We can structure a deal where we're paid an agency fee, which is a percentage of the approved budget. So let's say the approved, for round numbers, let's say the approved budget is $200,000 and our agency fee is 25%. Our agency fee is taken out of there, and this is our budget to spend on all the other things going on, right? The way that the city at that point didn't want to do that and said, hey, we're going to give you a little bit less, and you go raise it, and whatever you make, and so we were able to then take that budget and say, okay, well, we can't spend any more than that because, I mean, we have to be fiduciary responsible. So we take that budget and then we go raise money to actually pay ourselves. So there's two different ways to kind of structure that deal.
Now, with Taste of Jalisco in the past, we did not have the festival enclosed, and now there is an entrance fee. Is there going to be an entrance fee here? Is there going to be the same thing?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. The reality of that was required by us, by Agua Caliente, our sponsor. They wanted to have the analytics and data to go back to them. So if we did not have them as a presenting sponsor at that time, we would not have gone to that model. But that was the only reason we went to that. There's a cost associated with collecting that data and securing that area. And there's also a police risk and things like that by not doing that, by leaving it wide open, right? And that is another concern, and what is the cost of that? So I think we got to weigh that. The entrance fee, not to jump festivals, but the entrance fee that we've done for Taste of Jalisco has been very, very nominal and also free for residents and free on Fridays and things like that.
Okay. Now, my last question is, we do a lot of work with, of course, Rancho Mirage and the West End, and some balloons are actually out there. Is that correct? The
Yes,
West End?
sure. The Weston Jazz Balloon Glow was a minimal invested project. It was really the previous balloon operators. that was their project, and they made it kind of part of the festival. I think, to bring up Mayor Pro Tem's point, I think, it became a little confusing when we're kind of counter-programming against some of the activities that are happening in downtown Cathedral City. There is a new general manager at the Westin Rancho Mirage. Tom, who we worked with in the past, is no longer there. We would be happy to talk about what that would look like and negotiate to see. I think the biggest asset out of that was that we did get some discounted room rates out of that for the pilots that were part of this festival. That part of it always, to me, the kind of counter-programming aspect away from our downtown community, I do sense that it hurt Friday night a little bit. That's my gut,
I agree. But I just had that in mind, just in case we're going to do something like that, to actually maybe try to work with the DoubleTree, which is one of our biggest TOT contributors to our city.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we would love that. And, the focus, I think, I will say, I think even though we didn't have a significant investment or role to play in the Jazz Balloon Glow, the Westin, which was a for-profit event for the Westin. I mean, let's be transparent about the activity there. I know we had council attend. It is a very nice event. I'm not downgrading it in any way. It's a successful event for them as part of an ongoing jazz series. And they made the balloon kind of, since it fell into the window of their concert series, kind of made it branded as part of the Balloon Festival. But my goal is to, and I think this may actually get a little bit to Mayor Pro Tem's point as well, we want to maximize the dollars that are spent in Cathedral City on this festival, because you all as a mayor and council, that is our goal here, to be able to be stewards of taxpayer dollars that entrust us to be able to do that. So I think, when we do have the deep dive with Steve, which I'm raring to go, I'm excited to get started, because we got a lot of work to do in a short amount of time, pending your approval. But there's a lot that I think could be reallocated from a funding standpoint, and just a little bit more financial transparency that I think is going to come to the table with this particular vendor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have one last question, and I promise we'll be done.
Sure.
How do you feel, or what do you think your capabilities are to bring in some bigger sponsors? Bring in a Costco, bring in a Bank of America, bring in some of the $50,000, $80,000 contributors.
Yeah, so, I think, we raised, as far as money coming back to the general fund through sponsorship, we had a record year for communications and events. I think LGBT Plus Days was north of 50,000. I think I do have a strength as a relationship builder. That's something that I try to hone in on and bring to the job and the table. I think there's definitely a lot more now that we do have an events and recreation coordinator. Those are the type of things that are a little bit more the 3,000-foot view that I can get involved and do the sponsorship, help at least on the sponsorship component.
And that might help elevate, we talk about what can we afford, what do we want?
Yeah.
How do we bridge that gap?
Well, and I think too, to commend Steve, and I think it's awkward to brag on yourself, so I'll do it for him a little bit, that the sponsorship capabilities of this particular operator, I think are a tremendous upgrade.
Go get them. All right. So, do we have any other comments by council at this point? Super. Then, do we have any members of the public who'd wish to comment on this item?
Mayor, I did not receive any requests to speak forms, and there are currently no members of the public.
Thank you so very much. So do we have a motion to approve the staff recommendation, which is to approve SoundSkills as the selected vendor for the Cathedral City International Hot Air Balloon Festival based on the evaluation panel's scoring and recommendation?
So let me just, if you would, Mayor, let me just ask legal. So what we're approving here is kind of our intent for them, for our staff to negotiate a contract with SoundSkills. That's correct? And if for some reason they're not able to in a reasonable amount of time, we would kind of come back to square one?
Correct. You're not approving a contract with them. You're just selecting a preferred vendor right now to see if you can come to an agreement. Correct.
Good.
That's it.
All right, I'll move approval.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Gregory and a second by Councilmember Lamb. Please vote. And motion carries. All ayes.
Wonderful. Thank you guys also very much. So we are now jumping backwards to our legislative action A, which is AB 1600 Developmental Impact Fee, the DIF annual update. The recommendation is this item is for presentation and discussion only. May we have a staff report, please, City Manager?
Thank you. And Mayor, I'll just go ahead and point out, I think the agenda makes that clear, but both of the remaining two items, we normally would have had on a study session agenda, but I felt like we needed the whole study session for the budget, which proved to be correct. So you're not being asked to make a formal action on these items. We're presenting the information, and both of these then will be on your agenda 2 weeks from now for action. And that's relevant because with the 60-day implementation period, then the goal is to have both sets of fees to be effective July 1st, which will meet that 60-day requirement. The first one, the DIF report, is just the cost of living. It's the construction cost index, but we call it the cost of living increase to that one. And the regulatory fee that comes after that is our every 4 to 5 years. The target was to do the complete restudy, and so that's the one on item number 2.
And the staff recommendation says to adopt a resolution.
Yeah, and that's incorrect.
We would-
This is presented for information.
Changing that recommendation to just like a receive and file or something?
Yeah, it's for information, and if this had been correct, it would have said that it was provided for information, discussion, and direction only.
Presentation and discussion only.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry.
And Councilmember, we had caught that earlier and tried to correct it. There was a problem with the system that Tracy she had to put in a ticket on it because it wouldn't correct that statement in the item.
Okay.
Thank you. Please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Rather than good afternoon. So the city manager kind of took care of it, and this one, if you want to, we can just breeze right through. Any questions, council, as we go along?
No, we're good.
Please do. I plan on doing the slides, but I'm just giving you the cue that we can breeze right through. But if you have any questions as we go along, please do, or save them till the end, as usual. So thank you. Development impact fees. They're established by the city council, and these date back to 1998 from a state standpoint. We've talked about this before, and we started doing our AB 1600 in 2006. These are one-time fees charged to new development to pay for backbone infrastructure, capital facilities, serving the new developments and new residents. We're prohibited from using DIFs to fund ongoing operations and maintenance. That's the kind of discussion we'll have in the second presentation. So this is, and we're not able to make up for existing service deficiencies. DIFs must be accounted for, set aside, and saved until the municipality or the agency has the required funding to build the needed facilities. And as you all are aware, because we've been talking about AB 1600 over the last year and the DIF fees, we now have individual separate funds that we didn't have before. So we have even a better means of accounting for them. Background 2023 is when you all adopted our DIF schedule to reflect the recommendations that came out of that 2-year-long study. And then as a result, because of the 60-day noticing, we implemented January 1st of 24. So during the interim years, because the concept is we would do a DIF update every 8 years versus a user and fee study update every 5 years, during these interim years, we can come to you with authorized inflationary adjustments to those fees. This represents the first update, so it's kind of like, it's a year and a half, because we're trying to know how this coincide with our fiscal year. It was implemented in January of 24, and so now this will take us through June of 25, so an 18-month update for the inflationary adjustment. Assuming you all approve it at the public hearing in 2 weeks, when we come back to you, the update will be used and we will implement the adjusted fees come 1 July. The DIF fee schedule, these are our 5 new DIF fees. We also have other fees that we tie back to, but these are our 5 primary DIF impact fees that were under the study. They were adopted to include that automatic fee adjustment. As Charlie said, it's like a cost of living, but this one specifically is based on, this adjustment is based on what's called the CCI, the Construction Cost Index. It's a 20-city average that is reported by the ENR Gotta love these acronyms, the Engineering News Record, and it's a 12-month period. So in this example, we did a 12-month period, but we also did a 6-month period. And so in the end, it's a combined total woohoo of 2.97% for the 18-month period. This is the 6 months of the first calendar year, which is a half a year of year 24 over 23. That's the 1.35%. I'm sorry, sir.
Could you go back and leave that up for a second? Because the chart we got did not have the totals at the end, so we could see how much the overall increase was. So just take a second and look at it. All right.
Per our briefing, that's why we added it to the presentation.
Yeah, but I thought we might get it ahead of time, but we never did. So,
We-
he needs to give us a second to absorb the.
I'm sorry, it's hot off the press.
Okay, that's all right. That's why I'm just explaining why we need a second to kind of.
And then here's year two, the second year, which is the 12 months.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, key dates. April, the city clerk's office sent notice to the 5 organizations, the Agua Caliente, the BIA, the DVBA, I dumped that, SoCal Gas and SoCal Edison. The Desert Sun was noticed. First notice was last Wednesday on the 2nd. We're here to you tonight. We're also did a notice today in the Desert Sun. The City Council public hearing and approval will be in 2 weeks, as we discussed. 60 days from there is June 21st, which we do not implement in the middle of a month. We roll it forward, and so that's why we get to July 1st. So that is the fiscal impact with the compounded increase along with the equivalent development impact activity. We anticipate with the current kind of activity that we're seeing this year that we could see a potential impact of up to $60,000 for our 5 DIF funds for FY 25, 26 and forward.
Kevin, I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Exactly, we just talked about how much could be potentially be collected for the 25, 26. Do you know how much it was collected for 23, 24, and possibly 24, 25?
So for the first 6 months, we were at just shy of 1.1 million for this year. So that's why, and then so we tied back to, even if it would be relatively a little bit of a conservative, on the conservative side, and we tied back to at about 2 million on average for each fiscal year, then when we did this bump up, that's where we got our 60K.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Kevin, you should mention we got the letter from the DVBA.
Oh, thank
on
you,
this.
Charlie. The noticing that we did with respect to the DVBA on this one and the later one, in this example, the DVBA provided feedback this week. They were noticed last week. They provided feedback and they approve. So when we come back to you in 2 weeks, they've already provided their concurrence. Thank you.
And will that's going to be included in that packet? The
Yes.
letter? Okay, good.
Because at the point of time, we didn't have it yet.
Yeah. Let me just ask you real quick. So this is a year and a half, so it's kind of and you spelled it out well in the chart, so it's kind of a 1 year and then the half year. Is the intent to do them in year and a halves, or we'll try to do them annually?
Fiscal year. So now, so our goal is, and we've kind of gotten to that also with the other one with respect to the user and regulatory fee, which is the next agenda item. The goal is to be able to do this every April timeframe by doing these. So this one is, and for the next 6 or 7 years, we would anticipate doing this on the diffs.
All right, thank you.
We're trying to get into a cycle mode on most things. In line with our strategic plans, and that's our recommendation, to update the diffs for the authorized inflationary adjustments. We're looking for your feedback this evening, if should you have any, and that prior to the public hearing that will be on April 23rd for the proposed adoption.
Council?
Anything else? Questions, answers?
Council? No, we've got it back on the 23rd. Yep. Okay. Thank you. So now we have,
And Mayor, just for the record, we have no public comments on this item.
I was going to get there. That was going to be my next question. You got me. So I guess and there's no comments. Council's good? All right, so this is her presentation.
Based on the lack of comments, we'll bring it forward as is for adoption and public hearing on the 23rd.
I think we already made our comments. Update the chart if you would, and then the letter would be good.
So just stay right there, of course, because you have item B, the city user and regulatory fee update. This is a recommendation that this item provides findings and recommendations from the recently completed user fee study. Upon incorporating city council feedback, staff recommends the city council hold a subsequent public hearing whereby the city council can determine whether to adopt the schedule of user and regulatory fees. May we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Once again, good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, City staff. This is the bigger lift for the user and regulatory fee study. Ask questions as we go along, a little history, and we'll do a dive in. Background, these are the dates dating back to 2005. Our cost allocation plan and UFS, or our user fee study. 2010, we started one, got about 75% there, and then we called it off just because of coming out of the Great Recession. Then 2021, that's when we came to you, and that was our big lift for that 15, 16 years with respect to going through and engaging with our various departments and divisions here at the city. And we did a competitive RFP, and ClearSource Financial Services was the winner of that, and so they are our chosen user fee study and cost allocation plan gurus. We've been to you twice since then, and we've done, this is where it's the CPI concept, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and the Consumer Price Index. So we did that in August of 23, and that was tied to November 1st. Then April of 24, we came to you, and we were able to get that to happen and get that on that fiscal year cycle. So here we are. We engaged them around the December timeframe, and we had collaboration with them in February and March. And you heard it before with respect to it, that tied to this, it's a heavy lift. We had 9 different meetings with respect to the various departments and divisions, 2 different weeks to be able to pursue this update, because this is not just a cost of living update. These are changes that are occurring. So let's talk a little bit about what this does, what it accomplishes. It's the best practice in a California statute to support establishing user and regulatory fees in accordance with the estimated reasonable, and if you'll notice, this time that you're seeing it, we put it in quotes, for the cost of service. And that is with our intent to capture the city's costs. What does that mean? We're not a money-making proposition, so there is no profit there, but at the same time, we're not looking to incur a loss. We want to be able to be reimbursed for our average costs. All fees should bear a fair and reasonable relationship to the payer's burdens or benefits received from the activities and/or services provided by us, the city, to our constituents. So, ongoing review and adjustment of the fees provides multiple benefits, and these benefits are listed: keeping pace with inflation, avoiding fee spikes. We had huge fee spikes from 2005 to 2021. By doing this every 5 years, we should be able to not have those huge fee spikes. Providing fee payers, city staff, and city policymakers with a consistent pattern for forecasting and decision-making. This kind of thing actually helps us, based on the discussion earlier today with respect to budgeting, on being able to tie back to what kind of a pattern do we think, based on what's going out there in the world and the activity coming to the front door or online now, but it helps us. It helps meet fee payer service level expectations by collecting fees to fund the existing level of our services that we provide, and then we're able to have happier constituents because we can hopefully provide better service. And encouraging equity among fee payers by avoiding long-term stagnation of fees like we had for that 16-year period. So this is a sampling of the kinds of fees that are specifically examined, but not limited to: building, planning, engineering, fire prevention, police type fees, and there are associated examples. On the next slide, you'll see this is a laundry list of the various arenas that we touched. You'll see below, because for our further discussion, there are 4 of these that we'd like to talk about with respect to some of what was included in your packet as part of the appendices. What it does not include taxes. So the last bullet on the previous slide, it does not include the business license tax, which is the main fee. That is a tax. But it does include, for example, other kinds of things, like inspections, like application fees, things like that. But it doesn't include taxes. It doesn't include assessments, franchise fees, which are a form of a tax. This does not include the development impact fees. That was on the previous presentation. Fines or penalties, and utility rates and service charges, which are not applicable because we do not have a utility provider here in our city. So in your packet, the user and regulatory fee study had regional fee comparisons as examples, cost of service analysis for fully burdened hourly rate calculations, cost of service calculations, and proposed master schedule of user and regulatory fees. So all those attachments, a multitude of pages, those are all in draft form. Like the budget, we have since been tweaking that, and we've had continued meetings with respect to trying to find things, pinpointing things, because there's a lot there and based on the timeline. One of the things we were successful with, and this is where the April time frame comes into play, both of these were able to use, because before when we came to you, what we had in there from a study standpoint and resolution standpoint was we were using the March cost of living index. Now we're using the January cost of living index. So as a result, by having a January cost of living index versus a March, we're able to work on this now and know what those percentage increases are, because though March doesn't get published until like the 10th of April. So that's why we were having such trouble. And so we've been able to work with ClearSource in this example to get that moved back to January. So that's now our year-over-year time frame. Go back to the slide where we talked about capturing 100% of our costs. There are a couple slides in here that we went through what was delivered in your packet, and on these next 2 slides, we tie back to those items that we have recommendations in there to be a little bit below or more below with respect to the 100% cost of service. So I'd like to explain a few. And some of these you may remember from even 5 years ago with respect to some of these would be exorbitant. Let's say, for example, a garage sale permit. It could be exorbitant with respect to what our cost is to get there. The general plan maintenance surcharge. I wanted to point that out because when you look at that on first glance, you might say, well, Kevin, as it's pointed out in the explanation, it's over a 300% increase on the per thousand valuation. Well, our cost of service, 5 years ago, we only did a 25% cost of service, and it ended up coming in at 66 cents per thousand valuation. Based on our costs, and a lot of these, not just here but everywhere, 5 years later, we're smarter about calculating what is the time it takes us to do these things. Because 5 years ago, we were young pups, and we didn't necessarily look at, well, from cradle to grave, this is the amount of time it takes us to do these. So some of our increases, many of our increases are based on having better knowledge and knowing what it takes to do it. So in this example, when based on our costs for the general plan maintenance surcharge and our timing, the percentage to keep it at 66 cents was going to drop it to a 23% of cost. So all we did here with this, with working with our vendor, was we just did the parity of the same 25%. So the same 25% produces a 5-cent increase. So I wanted to throw some caution to the wind on that 5% increase, and if it sounds high at over 300%, that's the rationale. With respect,
Can you tell us what general plan maintenance is?
so, for example, the zoning code update that you all approved with respect to the 21-month effort through planning, 75% of that is being paid for from this. When we've do a code update or that type of thing, this is kind of like an admin fee that we're able to charge our constituents when they come in the door so that we can take that and set it aside into a deposit account.
Now, you're proposing here, or is being proposed, 71 cents instead of 66.
Yes, sir.
And the full cost of recovery is $2.85.
If we were doing, yes, so 71 cents is 25% of the $2.85. And 5 years ago, at the recommendation and discussion of not only ClearSource Financial but ourselves, we didn't want to go with that full heavy lift with respect to that full cost of service in this example. So we went with 25%. So from a parity standpoint, this year, we're recommending this 5 years later, we're recommending the same percentage.
Shouldn't we go a little bit higher to be closer to the cost to recover the amount of 285?
We can pursue that. The one caution to the wind, we wouldn't necessarily want to eke it up too much just because from a parity standpoint and an administrative cost. This is something that was a topic of discussion with the DVBA before, and based on their analysis and what goes on in other jurisdictions, 5 years ago, they were comfortable with our 25%.
Do you know what other cities are charging for the same?
Both from ClearSource and from others, that's the general concept, is a 25% number is a good number. It's
A good increase number.
No, a good parity number. The 25% of cost of service for something like this, this is a defensible number.
Okay.
So this is per 1,000 of valuation?
Yes.
So if you had something that was 300,000, you're looking at like $210 already.
And to give you an idea, year over year, on average, with the same kind of level of activity, we have been able to set aside plus or minus $30,000 a year to go towards this type of an
Right.
account.
And if I remember, some of the argument from the association was that some of this is more administrative that the city would need to do anyways.
And so part of what you're remembering, sir, ties back to the argument back in September of 23 with respect to the DVBA taking exception to our 3% admin fee on the DIF fee. And when they received, going back to the DIF, yes, they agreed and they provided concurrence on the DIF, but sometimes we have agencies, they will agree, but then they will include a statement, and the city manager has seen this before, where they say, we agree with what you're doing, but we still take exception with what you did 5 years ago. So they included that in their response to us on the DIF. So something like this, if we, for example, Councilmember Gutierrez, let's say we went to 50% parity versus 25%, which is what we're doing, we would get a comment. We would get a rebuttal.
Well, I've got you, but I don't think we're afraid of a comment if it's appropriate. But I thought there was an argument that went with the comment that at the time when we reviewed this, we felt at least was reasonable to keep it at 25%.
We did. We agreed with that. We concurred as well.
So without rehashing that whole argument, you're just recommending that we felt 25% was the appropriate level before, and so you're recommending the same.
Please, yes.
Okay. All right, I think I understand.
If you continue on with respect to, in the code environment, you see the garage sale permit, the street vendor permit, the initial and the renewal, and the street vendor permit, for example, has come to you before with respect to it. And so those are some of the percentages we're trying to tie back to. Yes, on the garage sale permit, but as the Community and Economic Development Director will provide feedback, we do get complaints with respect to that increase. If you remember years ago, it was $10. We raised it to $25. We do have a potential, you can see what the cost of service is based on what the time is that is currently done. Currently, the staff's recommendation is to keep that at 25, vice increasing it to 37. We were at 33 as a cost of service previously, and we were still at, we're trying to tie back to the 25.
And that's one of those, and actually the street vendor permit is the same way. That's one of those where it's a real benefit to code enforcement that they get the permit so that we know when we're out there doing enforcement who has one or not. And so we feel like it's to our advantage to have a cost that people will actually get the permit.
Well, I look at that engineering transportation drops from $547 to the proposed $90.
No.
But on the transportation, there is a maximum fee.
Maximum fee, I see.
And we're actually going to research and find out and go back and look, because this was CPI'd increase, and so we're at 94, we may owe. So that's on us to go back, but 90, and so we have to go back and see if the 90 has been the same 90. And somehow or another, in the last fee study, it was considered as a CPI, and we probably should not have done that over these two increases. So we're gonna have to determine what that's about, and we may owe people on that. So the $90 and the $16 are state mandates. But we know that that's what it is for the cost of service.
Now, Kevin, state mandates, does that mean the cost of service or the maximum that we can charge is $90 and $16?
The latter, sir. The maximum we can charge.
Is what?
The maximum we can charge. It's
90
your
and
second.
16.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you.
The pool drain permit, that years ago was $25, was raised to $25. And so not discourage people from participation, staff's recommendation is 36, but at 65% versus the 55.
May I just ask a question as we're
Sure.
going down? So we have copy of licenses, and we charge 10, but most are online, and people print their own copy at $5. If it's mostly online and they're printing their copy by themselves, why aren't we charging them anything?
We don't. Generally speaking, when we email,
It says your proposed fee is $5.
that doesn't mean we necessarily would do that. Like, so for example, in this world today, 10 years ago, from a business license standpoint, if somebody lost their business license and they came in, we charged them $5.
I get that.
We don't do, so today we email, because it's in our EnerGov and our EPL, EnerGov permitting and licensing, within the licensing module, we just take that license, we pull it, we drag it over, put it in the email, they've got it. We're offering that as a service.
And there's no fee for that?
Correct.
Thank you.
But even though it does say there's a
Yes,
proposed fee.
because it's almost, if you also tie back to the voter-approved cannabis fees and taxes that we have, we're not at those maximums. We're at less. So in this example, it's there, but yes.
Okay.
Bingo permit, and this was corrected because long before we had something out there that was $53, but since then there became a state mandate, and we took care of this 5 years ago, so the $50 is the max that we can do. The copy of the incident report, it's just consistent with other cities in the region, and even though we know the cost of service is where it is, the fire department recommends retaining that and keeping that at $16.
Why?
It's been a past
Because
practice.
other people do it.
Mhm.
You know what your mama would say about that.
With respect to planning, appeals, conceptual design review, The recommendation is, based on what the cost of service is to keep that at 50%.
What was it before, Kevin? Do you remember?
The current fee is $10.90, so, and this is where sometimes this is interesting. It's an interesting dynamic when you go through the report. Many times you think, well, the price is going to go up. But when you reevaluate the kinds of people that are doing this work, we may have a different labor category of people doing the work. We might have more hours, but the cost will go down. So in this example, the current fee at $10.90 with the hours that were captured on this, keeping it at 50% cost, it actually is going down $20 from $10.90 to $10.70.
I just want to make sure, as you review these fees, that we do not fall back like we were 15 years ago, that the fees were never fully changed to what they should have been, adjusted to what they should have been.
You don't have to,
That's the main thing.
You don't have to worry about that. There's a lot here with respect to, and there's things that are happening. Like, for example, I don't know how many of you remember, but 5 years ago, especially over in what is now branded as the Public Works Department, we left deposit-based type things and moved to more flat fee-based. Andy, as our new Community and Economic Development Director, he is embracing that this year. So in doing so, when you do that, and I can share with you that one of the things that we've learned from this through ClearSource, what they do is they look at 10 times. You want to make sure that on average, that 6 of those 10 times, you're hitting it on the mark. Because the other 4 times, a couple of them are going to be winners, and a couple of them are going to be losers. But the average, that's what we're going to get to. So, and from a personnel savings standpoint with respect to leaving the deposit-based environment and going to the flat fee-based environment, that's a win. We're going to be able to be more efficient. We're going to be able to utilize our staff in better ways by doing that.
Further answer your concern, Councilmember Gutierrez, because I share that. We don't want to ever get in the position where we're charging way below the market or what our costs actually are. On these 2 slides, you have, I don't know, a total of 15 or 20 fees out of hundreds that we do. So it's important because these are the ones where you're making a policy decision, and we want to make sure to have it correct to charge less than the full fee. But the vast majority, 95% of our fees, we're recommending the full cost recovery.
And if you would tie back to this 5 years ago and long before that, with respect to the old one, this is small, what we're sharing with you on these 2 slides.
Okay.
Police, they're number 1. They have the most lines here with respect to it. But in collaborating with the police department, we have 6 of these that are now have that we're now looking at that were originally rounded down on the number, like, so for example, from $22 to $20, and we're revising that to be the true cost of service. So in those 6 examples, the proposed fee in that proposed fee column is what is in the report that was part of your attachment. But we're now going to work now that we've collaborated with the police department, we're going to go back to the vendor and we're going to go with, for example, $22 on the first one. The next one, the $39 one for the citation sign-off for a non-resident. We're going to go with the $39, not the $35. So in all 6 of those, we're going to revise it up to the cost of service. There are a couple of examples of where it is considered a courtesy to a resident, anyone that is a resident of our city. So that would be with respect to the citation sign-off and the VIN verification for residents, those 2, with respect to no charge.
And what I see is that our chief is a great negotiator. We should use more of his advice because it's in the 90s.
So Let me ask a few questions on
Please.
these, if you would.
Please.
So I concur with the ones that are courtesies to residents until you get all the way down and it says VIN verification non-resident. And so the proposal is to raise it from 15 to 50, but the cost is $99. So if it's a non-resident, why would we be not charging the full cost? That means the taxpayer is paying part of the cost.
The basic consideration was it's somewhat of a courtesy, but then also in what the police department felt was fair to the public with respect to that kind of average charge, 50%. So we rounded up to the $50.
Why?
I'll bail you out on this one, Kevin.
Please, sir.
As we went through these costs, and obviously we do want to no charge the residents of our community.
Yes, concur
And
with that.
looking at the $99 where we were at 15, so I went from 15 to 50 for non-resident VIN verification. But I'm happy to go to $99, sir.
Well, don't you have to usually crawl around under the vehicle and do this kind of stuff on a VIN verification?
It depends. As you know from your experience,
Right.
some are very simple and easy and quick, and others take time, depending on what the DMV's requesting, going through the form, trying to find perhaps a secondary and/or the third VIN to
Right.
verify that vehicle.
Yeah, and I concur that it's a service that we would want to provide to our local tax-paying residents in Cathedral City, and so you have that at no charge. I think that's 100% correct. I'm just not sure why we're subsidizing the cost for non-residents. Do you know what other cities charge?
They're generally in the $50 range, but I can't give you exact numbers now.
I just can't imagine that this is a service you want to do, like for non-residents, because it takes somebody off of whatever their other duties are. And it can be a dirty job.
And
so I don't know, how many would you estimate do you have? Do you have any data of that at all?
I don't. We don't get a terrible amount of them throughout the year. I would probably say less than 100, but I can't tell you what is resident versus non-resident.
Okay.
So to be clear, what I'm hearing is for the VIN verification, we will raise that to 100%. However, for the citation sign-off, that's a courtesy, we will keep that at the $20, the 50% or thereabouts?
Well, the $20 is for Cathedral City residents.
Yes.
The
I'm sorry, the
35
non-resident.
is for a non-resident, but I assume it's one of our citations. Doesn't really say.
But the 35 is going to go up to the 39 in that example. I just want to make sure for our CC resident, the non-police department citation.
So what you're saying, where it says proposed fee, you've changed some of those, but you didn't provide us with that?
Because we kept the the proposed fee would be the cost of service.
That's not what it says, though. Some of them are less than cost.
This proposed fee is what was in your attachment. So that's why we kept it there with respect to the proposed fee. We were providing the original concept. It was originally rounded, the number was originally rounded down, but now after collaboration with the police department earlier today, the police department agreed to revise it to the cost of service. So by reviewing this with you all, it will be, in those 6, it will be the cost of service column. The proposed fee column is what was in the attachment to the staff report.
So what I hear you is, let's take one for example, because this is another one I want to talk about too. Alarm user permit initial. Our chart says you're proposing to raise that to $65, but you're saying really when we vote, we'll be raising it to $67, but we just didn't get provided that.
If you provide feedback today that we've made this change and it will be reflected in the updated for you all that comes forth, we would then be going with the full cost of service of 67.
So are we voting on this today, or are we not voting on this today?
We're not voting, you're just as part of this is for information and feedback whenever we.
Again, I'm just unsure because, okay, so we'll be holding a public hearing. All
In
right.
2 weeks, we'll be holding a public hearing. So in that attachment, for those 6 that are listed here, we would modify the report to show the cost of service column, and those 6 would be at the 100%.
I see.
And
All right.
possibly now the 7th one that we talked about with respect to the VIN verification for the non-resident.
So for the non-residents, so that one, the citation sign-off non-resident, you're saying you would propose 39? I think that's fine because they're a non-resident and they're using, because the way I look at it is we're subsidizing them with taxpayer dollars if we don't charge. So it's one thing to extend that as a courtesy to our residents that are paying our taxes, but not necessarily non-residents, although they might argue they bought something in our store, but there's no guarantee of that. So when it comes to VIN verification, then I would suggest that we do the same thing. We charge them $99. I don't know why we would subsidize them for $49 to do a VIN
And I
verification
think
if they're
that's
non-residents.
I think that's what the chief was just offering earlier, was we would up the
Okay.
50 to the 99.
All right, so, but now, when it comes to the others, there are certain ones, like the alarm user permits. Now, we took a position in the past that we wanted people to have alarm user permits so that they were recorded and we got some revenue. We didn't want unlicensed alarms. So I know for the initial and the renewal, we were not, by council direction, I believe, we were not charging the full amount. But now I see your proposal is to charge the full amount. So if somebody wants to get an alarm permit, it's $67, and when they get their annual renewal, it's $44. So I think we should leave those alone because we want to encourage people to have alarm permits and to renew those permits.
Meaning leave them alone and keep them at the current fee of 35 and 30.
That's correct.
I agree.
Just like you did some of the other ones. And I know, I saw in here that the proposal was to leave the false alarm alone, and we had a lengthy discussion about that, how, again, we didn't want to have, we wanted people to use their alarms, but we did recognize we didn't want people to have a lot of false alarms, so we've kept that level, and I saw that is in here, and that's good, but it threw me when I saw somehow we were recommending to increase the actual initial permit, because we want it to cost something, but we want to encourage them to have a permit, so.
So then in summary, what the takeaway is, there will be 5 to include 4 of the initially rounded down numbers revised to cost of service, and also to include the VIN verification for non-resident. But 2 of them we will keep at the current fee of the 35 and 30.
Yeah, let me just read through them and make sure, because I want to make sure what comes back has what you want. So, police fee, the first one, photos, digital media, flash drive, will be $22.
Correct.
Citation sign-off, CCPD for the resident, no charge. Citation sign-off, non-CCPD, citation CC residents will be $20.
Yes.
Correct?
Correct.
Citation sign-off, non-resident will be $39.
Correct.
VIN verification resident, no charge. VIN verification non-resident, $99.
Correct.
Alarm permit fee will remain at $35. Alarm permit renewal will remain at $30. Late filing fees will be $22 full cost. Late filing fees, 90 days, will be $44 full cost, and we haven't discussed.
And that's late filing of what?
Late filing of what?
I don't know what that is, but
What does it mean?
But those are free if they're residents, right? That should stay that way. All right, but I don't hear you objecting if we raise it to $99, because if we do get some, we should recover the cost if they're non-residents. So, all right. Yeah, I don't know what to say about the filing fees because I don't know what that is. But again, if it's a behavior we want to encourage, then, we want to keep those reasonable.
Yeah, it may be expired permits and then they file late instead of their renewal.
For the alarm permit?
That's what I'm guessing,
Okay.
but I'll check into that and make sure.
All right, and I don't have any problem with going to actual costs for those because people should not get them late. Usually, if they got them late, it's because they got notified that you don't have an alarm or something, and instead of citing them, they just said, hey, you need to go get your alarm, so.
And they
That's-
do receive a notice of renewal.
Okay. Oh, you're saying yes, okay, yeah. All right, no, I'm fine with those then going to cost of service. I just think that people initially get one and their annual renewal should stay quite reasonable, so. So that looks like that's the end of your fees that are below 100% cost.
Are we good with the final one, just to make sure?
Now, the concealed carry, we don't offer that, so I don't even know why it's there, correct?
I've never issued them to the public. I always refer them to the sheriff's department in the county. However, a chief has the ability to issue CCW permits. I've just chosen not to do that. But a future chief may choose to do that, again, with council direction. So I didn't remove it from the fee study to prevent a future chief from possibly being able to do that.
It's kind of like the $5, it's kind of like that $5 fee before that the mayor asked about. It's there, it would be there and it would be listed, but right now we don't even have it where we're using it.
I'm asking, so what are we losing by not doing it in?
Nothing. He's just saying, I think he's probably keeping it there because you don't want to have it somehow in the future assume that it's free. So it should stay on there.
If you were somebody who would authorize that, about how many opportunities would there be in a year for concealed carry in Cathedral City? Just throw me a bone here.
When I first got here in 2014, there were quite a few. And my personal belief on that was the county sheriff should issue those. I also don't have the personnel nor the staff and resources because it requires a significant process. Training's involved, a psychological exam is involved, and we just don't have the bandwidth in our police department. So in 2014, I chose not to issue them, and I never have since.
Well, it doesn't sound like it would be worth $200 if you had to do all of that anyway, would it?
Correct.
Just doing psychological.
And that was part of his rationale to protect a future chief of raising it to $300, which is right around 50%.
Well, I would recommend, given what I just heard, that you set that one at full cost of service. And if a future chief decides they want to do them and that they think that's prohibitive, then they can bring that up with the council at that time.
That would be fine.
Against collecting full costs, even though we don't issue them. That was a specific item they came back to.
You brought that up.
Who's they?
Correct. The company that we used. Yes, they recommended against going full cost because it's a Second Amendment issue, and now you have protesters coming saying that you're making it difficult for them to attain it.
But we're not using it anyways.
Correct.
I mean, if we're not giving concealed carry, it doesn't matter.
But still,
what you
they'd
might
have,
hypothetically
if
try.
another chief were to come in, they'd have that ability. So they just said, hey, if you're going to raise it, we'd recommend $100.
So I think, I understand and I respect what you're saying. I think from the council's position is we'd like to leave it at full cost, and if another chief comes in and wants to change policy and start issuing them, at that point, they can come and say, I want to start issuing, can we review what this cost is?
They just said that there could be pending litigation if we were to increase it at full cost.
I could see if we used it, but we're not using it, so. I don't care either way if we're not using it, but I see the logic in just going ahead and reflecting it at 100% and then addressing it if we ever get an application that is being considered.
I mean, honestly, it's just moot. We don't do it.
This is why I set that policy, because I don't do them, so I don't expect a legal challenge regardless of how council wants the fees to be set. I don't issue them, and I never have, so that's my past practice as well.
Okay.
I suggest we leave it because they're not issued anyway.
Leave it at,
Leave it at 300.
I'm fine with that. That's what's already in there.
Yeah.
I heard a third, saw a third.
That's fine, just as long as we know. Okay.
So Kevin,
Okay.
let me ask you, there are a few others that we, as council, had decided would be below 100% cost of service. But when this study was put together, they were jacked up. And the one that comes to mind is the historical preservation application permit.
And I have a slide on that. Can we just park that?
Yeah.
There's a full slide on historic preservation.
Okay.
Okay. Any others that you can think of? I mean, part of the mantra and part of the direction as part of our discussion amongst ourselves and city management was trying to capture cost of service as much as we can.
So I've got you there, but there are certain circumstances throughout the years where, as a council policy, we have said, oh, this benefits the city, and we want to encourage that behavior. So,
I think it's a good news slide.
right.
It's just later in the presentation.
all right, I thought we were covering the ones that were.
So let's talk about on the see belows on the previous slide. So here's the first one, ambulance fee comparisons. So this is an analysis that, and we've received input both from our fire department and then our consultant and the research that was done through the Riverside County Emergency Management Department. So what you have here is a sampling. Keep in mind, our fee is very low today. Our current fee is like $12.50 or something like that. We're very low in comparison on the first two columns with respect to our life support. In the end, when you look at if we get it up to a full cost number, we would be at $2,100. So the reality of it, when it comes down to what we would have, unless you have private pay or whatever, we're not going to get that in the end, but we're not getting what we could get by having the number at the max by having it at in the $1,200, $1,300 range. So what we have before you is a comparison with, you can see AMR for our neighbors to the west, for Hemet, Blythe, and Riverside City, and specifically we put city in there, what their rate is. The city of Carlsbad, their rate. And then Riverside, and we differentiate county for providing to Indian Wells, Indio, Rancho Mirage, and Palm Desert, what their rates are. We also have Idlewild and Calexico as samples that were pulled in. So what we have before you at 100% would be the recommendation to increase our cost to $2,100 for a transport. And then we have the other ones that are miscellaneous costs and comparisons. You can see down below at the bottom, the average, if you include AMR, and what our difference is, versus the average if you exclude AMR, and what the difference is. You can see from some of the miscellaneous ones over to the right, mileage, oxygen, EKG, night, were lower when you add it all on those individual ones. Any thoughts, any feedback? Do we bring ourselves up? Back in 2008, what was brought to the governing body at that time, under the fire chief at that time, was a rate that could be increased at $75 per year. That was halted in 2012. Don't know why. Coming out of the recession, I don't see evidence where it was brought back to council per se at that time, but so we have had a static fee since 2012 of our number, and so to get to the 2,100 that is proposed here today, that would just be not on obviously a going backwards basis, but applying that increase that was proposed and approved by our 2008 governing body. And that's how we get to the 2,100. And as you can see with the 2,100, we're still behind AMR and the cities that it's identified that they support there.
Kevin, why do you charge a night charge of $125 An ambulance operator pays the same at night as it
Believe
during
it's
the
a
day.
7P to 7A is the footnote with respect to the
I can't hear you,
timeframe.
Kevin.
Councilman, so as you break down these, it's what the different, how do I say it? The different billables, so Medicare, Medi-Cal, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, the different insurers, they will cover different things. Specifically tonight, it's one of those things they cover. So what we are trying to do is instead of try to spread the fees out, instead of putting it all in one area, we're trying to spread it. It's something that's allowed. It was here when I got here. It's just one of the ones that we choose because, I hate to say it, because we can.
Well, wait a second. I don't think we charge fees because we can. We have to reflect it as part of actual cost. So you might want to relook at that, but usually you would see that because you have employees that get a differential. Do you have any employees,
No.
including dispatch,
No,
that get a night
this is strictly,
differential?
when I looked at it, as before Kevin did it,
Dispatch does get a JPay.
we looked at everything like, why is it here, right? And it was one of those things that's just kind of always been there. And then the second part was, okay, it's always been there. I can't tell you before I got here, I
So
know
that's
there's
not
no pay differential.
That's not a new fee. That's one that.
You know, that's a,
'Cause this is new that we're looking at. This is so, but we can't tell by looking at that what's new and what's not new. So this is proposed to.
There's nothing new for Cathedral City. So if you look at, there's nothing new. We just increased what we had.
So the 2,100 was the increase. I'll go back and validate and see if there's anything otherwise in
All right.
there.
I would be concerned if you have fees and you can't justify what they are, even if they're allowed by Medicare. I think the law says we're only supposed to recover cost.
So we'll reach
we
out
should
to the
know what
fire
it is.
department tomorrow with respect to the other fees and if
Okay.
there's any differences from what's already there. The big increase here for us is the 2,100.
Okay. And I assume that that's well justified by increased costs since then. You didn't just come up with that number. I mean,
No.
So I would recommend that we kind of look at all those numbers, especially as was asked, the night differential, and see if it's justified. And if it is, then I don't think we have a problem with it. But the question was why, and if we're not able to answer that, the concern with that is if we did get some kind of audit or review, we would have to be able to justify all these numbers.
I can tell you everything else there is justified. I mean, they're actual cost, even the treat and release. But everything else, like, I'll have an answer tomorrow.
Okay, and you may be able to scratch your head and figure out why that was in there, and it may be justified. Like I say, usually where I've seen it before is because there are some type of differentials or some other additional costs after hours, those types of
What
things.
is that night differential?
It's a 7P to 7A. And so when Mayor Pro Tem Gregory asked about did we have any, from the fire department standpoint, they do not have any evening extra pay.
They have
From
no
a
reason
police
to have that
department standpoint,
125.
They do in dispatch.
Nothing you can link it
Dispatch
to.
does get a differential.
And I know, again, not the fire department, but AMR, they pay a different fee because they have what's called 12-hour cars. So the night cars, they pay those
Which is probably
ambulance
why they'd be
attendants more.
justified there. So
Yeah.
I think we just need to figure out if we're justified.
If ours is or not. I'll find out
And what
tomorrow.
it gets tied back to, exactly.
And we can, I mean, and if nothing else, there would be something from a night standpoint to justify for what we call the J pay, for the evening pay on dispatch. So there could be a different number, but we'll reach out
Is
to the
there
fire.
evening pay for firefighters? Evening pay?
Dispatch,
Just dispatch?
dispatch.
Yeah, I get that.
That's ambulance. So let's look at some building fee comparisons. And so in the attachment that was included, in some of these, and this is where I may refer to some of the notes with respect to it, the 6 building fee comparisons: residential HVAC changeout, service panel changeout, water heater changeout, temporary power pole, the underlying rate, and the building permit and plan review. I'd like to preface this with the vendor that we have, ClearSource, they're currently doing a fee study with La Quinta. So when you see the city of La Quinta on some of these, this is their current rate, but they're going through a fee study. When you see the city of Rancho Mirage, they recently did a fee study with Rancho Mirage, so that's the other ones that are part of the fee comparison, they have not been done in a while. So I just wanted to give you that overview and feedback. So let's look at the residential HVAC changeout fee. And this ties back to something that I said earlier with respect to 5 years later, what is the time that it takes and the labor category of the people that it takes to do the work? So in here, when you look at Cathedral City's current fee, in a comparison, we're at the bottom, but our proposed fee gets us up in the middle. And that is not as much from a cost standpoint on the hourly rate, but it is as a result of more time is the difference there. So I wanted to share that. And on these first four, that's a similar methodology. In working with our building folks in identifying what it takes to do and the type of labor category that it takes to do it, we have better numbers, better data than we had 5 years ago. And that's always the goal and why you do this every 5 years, because your processes can change. So Cathedral City, with respect to the service panel change out.
Excuse me, Kevin, real briefly, to go back on the change out on HVAC, is that $206 per unit, like if you have an apartment building with 5, or is that just one permit?
That's a permit. It's a permit.
So if you have 5 air conditioners or 1, it's the same price?
No, it's
No.
for each, right? It's for each.
Each unit?
So if you have 5, you would pull 5 permits.
Gotcha, all right, thank you.
Kevin, this same question. Now, a lot of homes have 2 air conditioning units. Is that 1 fee or double the fee?
Two?
Residential,
If there's
single
two
family home.
HVACs in a home, is that 2 permits?
It'll be 1 permit
For the home?
for the home, correct.
Okay.
Did I go backward? Yes, I did go back. So then, next. On the service panel change out. This one had even more time with respect to what we gathered this go around versus 5 years ago. And you can see that the increase went from 148 up to 269. The water heater change out. Currently, we're at 148, and it's similar to 2 slides before from a time standpoint and cost standpoint, and it's in the middle of the range at 206. The temporary power pole, significant with respect to the hours increase. 148 to 358.
That's quite a steep
that is an increase.
Difference. That's a huge increase. I say that we stay a little bit closer to even what the county, or I know that Desert Hot Springs is one of the higher.
So I would
admin
say,
fees.
why are we subsidizing this if that's what it really costs? If the question is, why does it really cost that much, that's a different question. But
I would like to know why does it cost.
So
do we have
I'm
this
okay
amount?
if
Because
it's a
if other
behavior we're
cities-
trying to encourage, but I don't know.
It's the type of labor category, and it's also with respect to the increase in hours that it is to do it. So it is at $179 an hour, and it's 2 hours for this now. So that-
Councilmember, is that something you would ask the department to review again and make sure?
Yeah, if you can review that one a little bit, because that's, it's a huge difference from what we had it to the proposed. And I don't know if, I would like to have it reviewed once again to see.
And if I can also, I'll let Jeremy speak to it, but also, if you remember 5 years ago, there were examples, and this might be an opportunity to employ to make it more palatable if from a compromise standpoint. If you remember, we had some fees where we employed an 85% methodology. Then in the next year, we upped it to 92.5%. And the following year, we upped it to 100%. So if the hours that were identified in the report with respect to it, the time, we could get to the 100% potentially in 2 years if we've employed a similar methodology that we employed 5 years ago.
There's really two different methodologies. One is just having a softer raise year after year. The other is questioning why is it that much?
And what I was just offering, ma'am, was the softer raise of the 85 to 92.5 to 100, because that was some of what was employed 5 years ago.
I hear you, I understand, but that just
Yeah.
didn't sound like what Councilmember Gutierrez was seeking.
Correct.
Good evening, Council. Mayor, my name is Jeremy Fry. I'm the Chief Building Official. I can elaborate a little bit on that. Right now, or at least the current fee, we're only at about 53% cost recovery. We were 148. The other thing to keep in mind is our fees are based off of 2 inspections and/or 2 plan checks. So you have an initial inspection, and if they fail, you go back, you re-inspect it. Right now, that's pretty much every other city in the valley is at 2. We're at 3. So these inspections, these permits will actually take into consideration 3 visits. So let's say there's a miscommunication, someone missed their inspection, they forgot about it. No problem, we'll go back out there. And we can do that twice. So in this instance with the temporary power pole, it does happen quite a bit because of the fact that the work is either not ready, there was miscommunication between the contractor or let's say the builder, if it's a planned development community. So from that aspect, that's where we're regaining that 100%, if that makes sense.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jeremy. And 5 years ago, we also know that with respect to, there's more collaboration this go around with respect to utilizing our staff and their expertise and their estimates with respect to the hours estimates. 5 years ago, for what was then labeled development services, we had more of a one input type of thing on what the time was, and we didn't truly take into consideration beginning to end. Based on what Jeremy said, I will share with you the vendor. They would tie back to, if your average 6 times out of 10 is 3, a visit is an hour. A visit isn't less than an hour. So in that example, it should probably be 3 hours. But here we're tying back to 2 hours because it's significant going from where we were at to here. 5 years when we come back, if life isn't better, it might need to be 3 hours. So I just wanted to give a little insight there.
So most cities only give 2 visits and we give 3, is that right, Jeremy? So if we cut back to 2 visits, would that lower the 358 some? It would. Is that anything council is interested in?
It would lower.
But then there'd be an additional fee when we do have to go back for the 3rd time.
Well, that's on the contractor, I would assume, or the builder.
What the county does is you deposit, they charge you a certain amount, and depending if you do fail inspections, they continue to charge your account. Now, if you pass inspections, you just get charged the base amount. Once you finish a project, they'll either send you a refund or they'll request additional funds to complete your project. If you failed 10 times throughout the course of construction, you will be billed for those 10 times that had to go back. But if you passed every single time, if you did positive, for instance, $10,000, you might get $2,000 back.
So if we go from a fee standpoint, which is what we're trying to do, and we tie back to the 2 versus the 3, we could potentially look at having a reduced number. Let's say it's an hour and a half. That would be the norm, and then have for anyone that fails, we could have like a per hourly rate that could be an add-on and call that an hour. And then that would, I wouldn't call it a penalty, but they would actually have to, because a call is usually an hour. with respect to the drive to, the drive from, because they pay, that's part of the cost of service is the drive to and from. So potentially what that would tie back to is potentially lowering this 358 to maybe, instead of 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half. And then having that as the new fee. But then for those examples, the 4 out of 10 times if you do have to go, we could have that hour surplus charged. Is that palatable?
Yeah, if they fail the second inspection, charge them for the third inspection as a fee.
That's what we're saying, sir.
So that will be great. That will be not as much, but if they fail the second time, you got to pay. If they failed it for a third time, charge them again.
And we'll do that if they would
Yeah.
fail at another time.
I would feel more comfortable.
Right.
Excuse me,
with
Andy,
that
did
if
you want to
council agrees.
put in on something on this, Andy? I saw you. You good? Okay.
Oh, you're good. So I think that's our strategy. Dial this one back to maybe an hour and a half.
We're going to do 2 hours. Everyone else does 2. And if that's what it takes.
Is it
and
2
then
hours or 2 visits?
2 visits, which is 2 hours.
Which,
Okay.
and then that's the 358 then.
That's what you said, 3 visits.
He did, but I was tying back to, I'm just sharing with you what our consultant ties back to. For something like that, you usually call it an hour.
But he stood up there and said they get 3 for this.
Yes, but.
So does that fee include 3?
It does, and that's.
Okay, so if they want to go to 2, it would be 2/3 of that, and then we would have a failed inspection revisit or whatever you call it fee.
Yes.
That would be 1 hour.
And we can do that.
That's pretty easy.
We can do
That's
that.
simple.
It's just,
Okay.
we're doing it at less than an hour, which is different.
Because that 358 just shows a big difference compared to the
It
surrounding
does.
cities.
You are correct. When you look at our uniform hourly rate, you can see our average rate tied to this only went up $10.
Thank you.
So this one is, let's talk about the building permit and the plan review. So in this, and this is in your report, you can see our current versus our proposed. But let's explain the difference, and the footnote at the bottom ties back to just that. The proposed fee includes the trade permits, and the trade permits are plumbing, mechanical, electrical, and engineering. Those are equivalent to about 10% of the basic permit cost, which is $400 and change. So if you look at that $1,750, which is what it is for those 4 permits, and if you backed that $1,750 off, the $99.70 would get you down to about $8,200. So that would be a comparison of $8,200 to $7,165. Our current fee is $7,165.
And does that include all of those permits as well?
So currently today, the approach was taken in this fee study to include those 4 trade permits, and they're listed below. And so the reason it's increased as significantly as it has.
Kevin, the question is the current fee inclusive of all the sub-permits, or is the current fee just a base permit?
So the answer is no.
No,
Thank you.
I don't know what the no was, because she had 2 proposals. What was the no?
no, it is not.
The current fee is just the base building permit. It does not include all the
Yes.
sub-permits.
I'm sorry, I was doing it the other way, my apologies.
No worries, no apology needed.
That's why I was tying back to 7,100 versus 8,200.
Now, the other comparisons that you do have here, they do not include plumbing, mechanical, electrical, and energy.
Correct.
But the current one does not. But the proposal.
So
but
we know what
comparisons.
other agencies charge for all of those?
You can speak to
It'd be
the
nice to
trade.
see
It's
a chart
it's
so that's apples to apples instead of.
Correct.
We do. And if I can add to that, Council, as Kevin just commented, La Quinta is currently going through another fee study as well. Palm Desert, Palm Springs, and Coachella is about to start one as well. They're all going through the same process, and it's kind of, a coincidence that we're all doing it at the same time. However, all of those other cities do not include the actual sub-permits, the sub-tribe. So what we call the MEPs, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, as well as energy. In doing that, we rolled it all into one, and that was one of those things where It's a gray area. It's my call to do that because in the past, we were not collecting on those fees. So that was a big issue that we came across over the past year and a half. So, and that's one of the biggest things that carried the weight on making that decision.
Now,
But it isn't a case-by-case decision, right?
No, it's across the board.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
But you were, for people individually coming in, you were capturing those permit costs individually.
Sometimes.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes, and that's where, unfortunately, in the past, we missed the mark on that, and now we're at a 100% capture rate.
So what does it cost a developer to build for a 2,500 square foot house?
Sure.
This is only partial. So I was leafing through trying to figure out what are all the fees, and of course there isn't one list because the houses are all of different square footage. I
Sure.
understand that.
Sure.
But just generally, what are the fee encumbrances to build a 25 square foot home?
So
Approximately.
I can give you, we actually did a 2,000 square foot because most of the
Okay.
cities
Yeah,
across the
it's just
valley
an
have
idea.
estimated for a single family dwelling.
Okay.
We are in about and correct me if I'm wrong, about the 25th percentile. So for us, out the door to build a house in Cathedral City, it's about $26,000 and change.
Okay.
That includes all of your development impact fees,
Okay.
your TUMP fees, everything
Okay.
like that. There are cities that are 38,000, there's a city that's 28,000. All of those other cities forecasted are to come up while they're in that fee study as we are doing right now.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And I have another question. It's nothing to do with this slide. It's the one about, but as long as you're up here, it's about it's the very last page, Appendix 1. It says final tract map 25 lots, and the page before it says tentative tract map 25 lots. Does the same person, do they have to pay is it the tentative tract map and then they pay the final? They both?
I can't comment on that. I believe that's more on the planning side, if I
Okay.
remember correctly.
I saw it and I just kind of.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Moving on. So those were the 6 comparisons from a building standpoint. From an engineering fee comparison, we'd like to review these 3. For the plan review rough grading, 10 acres, 2 sheets. You can see we're going from 2,600 to 3,000. And that is about 3.5 extra hours with respect to it from what was done 5 years ago to now. And that's the difference. But you can see we're still in the middle of the pack or thereabouts. Rough grading, 10 acres. In this example, proposed versus current it's noise with respect to it. Final tract map for 25 lots, and you can tie back to that. And what's interesting here is, and it's a number of hours here, we go from 4,100 to 5,471. And in that example, it's about 7 hours, 6.5 to 7 hours. With respect to that is the increase. So the rest of it is in rate.
About a 20% increase.
So yeah, almost 30% with respect to the current up to the proposed. So let's talk a little bit about concession stand. There was a question that was asked with respect to that, and so this is the feedback with respect to that. Concession stands can be reserved in conjunction with a field reservation for an additional cost. So a concession stand, the stance that we have is that would not be able to be reserved without a reservation. The use of the concession stands will not be allowed unless approved for some reason by the city prior to that use. And then these are field reservation rates that we currently have, and we would be providing those with respect to what we have in the DRD rate.
All right, so the fees, the master fee schedule doesn't say per hour, but it's understood it's per hour.
Yes. So if we
That's
need,
the unit is the per hour, right?
yes.
And would it normally have a note about that it has to be reserved in conjunction, or is that just because that's our policy that would automatically come into play?
I mean, as a result of the question, we're going to provide it back to the vendor with respect to it and ask them for their best solution to incorporate.
So to make sure that it's notated how they feel
Yes.
is correct. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Planning. These are the 4 comparatives. The processing fee for an appeal to the city council. So what's interesting, this one actually goes down by $20. It goes from a current amount to a proposed amount, and that ties back to different people doing things versus 5 years ago because it's different labor category.
Big jump to Rancho Mirage, gosh.
Yes.
The conditional use permit you can see up above with respect to our proposed versus our current, it's actually going down from 9,200 to 9,000 up at the top for a new or modified structure. But down below, with respect to the no structure change, it's a significant increase and it's a significant number of hours. And the hours increase, for whatever reason, 5 years ago to now, is about 20 hours of additional labor.
What would be an example of a conditional use permit on a no structural change? I didn't quite get that. What would that mean?
I heard the chair come up. Sorry.
Yeah, what would that mean?
So the difference between these, CUP for a new structure, this is the development of a vacant lot. And really that would include a design review process in conjunction with the CUP. The CUP for use only, no structure, this would be a CUP where there's an existing building and it's a tenant going in that requires a conditional use permit review.
Thank you.
And a tentative track map, if you notice the proposed fee on that for TTM for 25 lots, current versus proposed is increasing $200. And it's mostly rate. Sign permit fees, there was an error in the report that was attached. There was a wall permit, which is not relevant. That exists, but it's not relevant to this discussion or germane to that. So we've taken that out from this slide. And you can see from a sign permit standpoint, current to proposed, $25, $26. Historic preservation. The question that was asked with respect to that, the application to obtain the historic preservation is at $99. The certificate of appropriateness, the review for reviewing modifications to an existing historic resource is at $1,800 and change. The application to remove or downgrade designation, that is at $2,885. Any questions with the 3 different categories?
Fee schedule proposes to raise them up to 100%.
And so on the first one, based on the previous discussion, we would retain that at the application there. And then on the certificate, so what we would tie back to based on this review is we would look at the 1854 and the 2885 going up by CPI, the last 2. And we would be making that recommendation to be that
So
change.
it'll be modified when it
Yes.
comes back?
So
to
we
us?
would make that change with your concurrence.
To ask you a question about this. So let's say you have somebody who gets a historically preserved home, they work on it, they do whatever we ask of them to make it beautiful and historic. Why would we let them remove it or downgrade the designation? Why would we do that? Because it's voluntary. No.
Mayor Ross, can you bring your mic down a little bit?
Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
I'm just familiar with another city's.
Sure. So
historic
the way your
preservation,
historic
and they
preservation ordinance is written, it's an opt-in and an opt-out. It is City Council that has to consider the designation to remove that historic designation, but it is a voluntary program. So it's voluntary to opt in, and then there are provisions written in the code that allows someone to remove that designation if they so choose at a later point, going through a hearing process.
So could they just go back and forth, back and forth? They want to fix it up, and then they don't. They want to lower it and probably lower their taxes, and then they want to do something else. And, you know.
So it is an intensive process to designate a historic structure. There is a significant amount of work on the part of an applicant to propose that designation, to go through the hearing processes with the Historic Preservation Committee and others. I don't think we'll see that.
I'd like a copy of that application if I could get one.
I'll get it to you.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. That's, from a comparison standpoint, that is it. This is a similar slide with respect to our April activities, same as what you saw earlier this evening on the AB 1600. In the case of the DVBA, we did send, the city clerk did notice, we received feedback this Monday. We responded today. They brought up some good points on dollar amounts that did not affect anything in here on overhead kinds of calculations, and ClearSource, our consultant, they agreed with those observations. We've supplied that back to the DVBA today, and then they will continue their review with respect to the fees itself, but this is like their part A. And then, so we anticipate receiving feedback one way or another as a result prior to the public hearing. And they could potentially be here at the public hearing, like they have at times before.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine. They are the only ones we've heard back from. So it's the same timeline, June 21st is 60 days, July 1st implementation. The fiscal impact, and we broke it out into two different fiscal impacts. And this will tie back a little bit to the budget discussion earlier this afternoon with respect to the current environment. If you look at where we're at today with respect to the same level of activity based on what we're seeing here, we anticipate a 200K plus. And once again, it goes back to we estimate revenues a little bit more conservatively and the expenditures higher for the maximum exposure, but we're looking at 200K plus with respect to the impact to the general fund, a positive impact. For the ambulance fee comparison that we had previously, and I don't think that would be much if there are any changes, like for example the night or whatever, but when we get our feedback from the fire department, we conservatively estimate $300,000 in the first year. So if you go back to Chief Contreras' presentation that he presented back in March, we were looking at going from 4.1 up to 4.6 million the first year with the fourth ambulance. And then in year 2, up to 5 million with the fourth ambulance, another 400,000. This $300,000 that we're considering in year 1 would be above that 4.6 estimate. So it will be lump sum together, but we have it separate in our system.
So Kevin, the $200,000 is for the building department and all the other fees.
Building, it's all the other departments, separate from the ambulance, sir.
Thank you.
Our strategic plan and goal, the recommendation that we were providing the findings and recommendations from the recently completed user fee study upon incorporating your feedback, which we've received tonight. We recommend that City Council hold a public hearing on April 23rd to adopt the new schedule.
I agree. Sounds
Council,
good.
we'll get all these changes and corrections that were discussed tonight put into the document so that it will be correct when it is attached to the staff report for the April the 23rd meeting.
Right. So tomorrow we'll itemize with respect to all the items in this discussion, and then we will make those changes and coordinate with our vendor.
Thank you so much. Are there any additional questions from council? I don't believe I see anybody from the public in the audience.
No comments,
We
ma'am.
haven't had any changes. So that is it for our lovely evening. Do we have any discussions of future agenda items? Yes, no? We have no further closed session. We are adjourned.
Thank you.